We're live. Tell your friends you're listening to the Verhoeven Effect podcast. I'm Conlon.
And I'm Nathan.
We have another very special episode. We have the 2006 movie Children of Men. Nathan, do you have a history of Children of Men?
I saw this in the theater
All right, when did you see it in the theater?
in 2006.
Okay, do you know what month?
I don't.
Okay, because like,
I believe it was cold.
so when you pull up the Internet Movie Database page, like you'll start auto playing a video and it'll say released in January 2007. It's like, I didn't see this in 2007, and then if you look at the dates, it says released, like limited in like November, or no, like limited release in December 25th, which means around Christmas. And I'm like, I didn't see this around Christmas. I think I got some like sneak preview viewing in the Midwest. I think I saw this in like September because I saw this like way before everybody else. But I have tried to look up and there's nothing I can use to support that. I don't have the ticket stub, but like I'm pretty sure I saw this like way before anybody else. But
I remember because I read the book
okay.
and I was like, there's no way they made that miserable book. It was a cool book, but it's like, there's no one's going to want a couple of it. That is too dark. And the book's like actually darker than the movie, and it goes in kind of different directions too. Book's different from the movie. But I remember seeing it, and I know it was like cold. So it could have been in January.
Yeah.
But for some reason I don't think it was.
Yeah, because I like whenever I saw it, which I like it was like me and like 5 people in the theater. So
yeah, there wasn't a lot of people there. I remember that.
because like I was really excited about it because it was directed by Alfonso Cuarón. I'm probably saying that name wrong, but so around this time, like the Harry Potter movies were out, and like they weren't for me, but like the Stars had the whole Harry Potter series. Like so, whenever those came out, like they'd come on there, and I'd see them. Like, yeah, they're fine. But then I saw the third one, which is The Prisoner of Azkaban, and it's like a whole tonal change. Like there seems to be like way more purpose and interesting takes, and it's a lot more darker. It's like, hey, who directed this movie? Well, it wasn't Christopher Columbus who directed the first two, because he's like known for making kids movies. Like he made like Home Alone and stuff like that. But no, that the third one was directed by Alfonso Cuarón. And it's like, oh, I'm really excited. What's the next thing this guy's doing? It's like Children of Men. It's like, oh yeah, then I saw the trailer for it, which around this time is still probably hard to get trailers and stuff. I remember there was a whole site, just Apple trailers. That was the best place to get it, because it was like you could have the best looking trailers for like the least megabytes of downloads.
Okay.
Where now it's all streaming now, but then you had to just like literally download the whole file to watch it, which is still like a to do back then. If you didn't have, a T1 line or cable. So but yeah, so I was really excited about it. So yeah, I think I saw this in September, but I have nothing to back that up. There is like, it had a November premiere in LA, so maybe I saw it in November. I'm pretty sure I didn't see it around Christmas time. That's the thing. I because I remember, like, that's all I remember is like I saw this movie way before anybody else. But it didn't really matter because not a lot of people saw this anyways. Even though this is a well-regarded movie, I feel like I don't think it, for these numbers I saw, it didn't make its budget back. But I feel like everybody knows this movie regardless. So,
Yes, this movie definitely had a lot of cultural resonance, and as everyone remembers things from it to this day.
Yeah. But yeah, this is definitely like, might be one of my all-time movies. I'm not sure. Like, I've never solidified that list, but this is probably up there. So
yeah, it floats around with me, but yeah, this would definitely be up there. It's one of the few things that actually, this makes more sense than the book. And I would, even though the book went into more detail about certain things, it's like, this is actually more coherent to me.
Oh, so is this one of the few cases where you'd say maybe the movie's better than the book?
Yeah, I would. Okay. Because, well, the book is just it's one of those things that's, I don't know, how would you say it?
Relentless?
It's like, well, P.D. James writes a lot of books that or she wrote a lot of books. She died in 2014. She was 94 then. So,
Oh
uh,
damn.
yeah, she was pretty old, and she wrote a lot of books where it was like, this is just. Well, she wrote a lot of books that were like straightforward, like murder type books, and it kind of like a later day Agatha Christie, but
Okay.
people liked her. But then she wrote stuff like almost just like just pure Silence of the Lambs type psychological thrillers, and then Children of Men, which is just considered her odd science fiction book. But she never wrote one before or since, and it's really, except for the setting and the stuff going on, it's just more of a dystopia set in the future. That's what would make it sci-fi, but it's just kind of a message book about, what is life and death, and what is our legacy, and what if we couldn't have children, what does it mean to prepare to die, to go extinct.
Yeah.
A lot of stuff like that, a lot of like thinking about that. Um and whereas the movie is more like, what would it be like to live in a dystopia of a dying world, and how can we envision that and make it exciting, and make the best depressing movie you could see. So that's like that's what drew me into, because I didn't know much about it, and I certainly didn't know who Alfonso Cuarón was then. Now he's since made another movie I really love called Gravity,
Yeah.
and but yeah, I just like, this movie was just, it's very like enthralling.
Yeah.
I didn't know who Clive Owen was before this.
I knew him. Actually, the first thing I knew from is like, so like the oh, now I'm forgetting it immediately. Um, the Scott brothers, Ridley and what was the other one?
Oh,
Tony.
oh yeah, yeah.
So they produced like a series of BMW films that were like extra budgeted for like action movies, and he starred in them.
Okay.
So that's where I knew him from. But he, he'd done a lot of British television and stuff like that, and then, um, yeah, I guess if I go to his filmography, but yeah, he'd been in stuff I'd seen before this, but that's where I first knew him from. Um, so yeah, so I knew what to expect. It's like, oh, okay, I like this guy, because I forget like what his thing was. They made it sound like he was like a supermodel before he got into acting. It was like it's like is he the world's ugliest supermodel?
Yeah.
I mean, he's not an ugly man, but he's not a supermodel.
Yeah.
so I forget what like the thing he did before he got into acting, but he did have like some other career, or maybe he was like a football guy or something like that. Maybe he was like played rugby or something. That's always a thing with British people. Like, oh, I played soccer for 2 seasons. Now I'm a television star because I broke my leg. um,
Yeah, it seems like he was kind of estranged from the idea of acting.
okay.
But then he went to drama school after high school, whatever. I don't know what they call it there, but yeah.
Primary school.
And then he started doing did a lot of TV stuff
Okay, yeah.
from like 1990 till like, till he started doing movies. Of course, I knew who Julianne Moore was. I knew who Michael Caine was. I did not know who Chiwetel Ejiofor was at that time.
I
But
knew.
now he's been in everything. So.
Yeah, well, I knew him previously from the Serenity movie, the Firefly movie.
Okay.
He was the
Yeah,
bad
that's
guy in
right. He
that.
was the agent or whatever in
Yeah.
that. Yeah. Okay. So I didn't even think about that, but yeah. And then of course Charlie Hunman, like everyone knows who that is now.
Yeah, it's yeah. When Sons of Anarchy came out, it's like, I know this guy. Why do I know this guy?
And then you see him interviewed, and it's like when the Walking Dead people started doing interviews as their actual self. It's like, all our favorite American TV stars are just British people in disguise. Because I know the sheriff in that like disturbed people.
Yeah.
Like they were so bought into that guy is like, that's the sheriff from Georgia. He's such a great actor. And they hear him interviewed, and he like, well, yes, I really got into this. And they're like, whoa, he's acting again. It's like, no, that's how he actually talks. He's from England. But,
I mean,
yeah.
that group was a lot of I forget the guy who directed that, but like he was a part of like he worked on Shawshank Redemption, which where that guy got his start, kind of like at least acting in America. That's his first big role, because he was like the guy who found out that Andy, he knew the guy who actually killed his wife outside, and he tried to tell the warden they had him killed. Like that's the guy who plays the sheriff in The Walking Dead.
Oh, okay. All right.
So a lot of the Walking Dead people are kind of like holdovers from all that the non-horror Stephen King stuff that this guy kind of like collected, because he also worked on The Green Mile too. So that guy just has a collection of people he brought into the Walking Dead, and then they fired him after the first season. So
Yeah.
but then it continued on for like 20 more seasons, so maybe that was the best thing.
Yeah, it's like the longest running TV show in human history now or something. Oh, it's not even close, but there's
No, but for like a deep cable to like place, like, and it's even still going because they have that like the Dale show when he's like in France and stuff like that. And so,
Walking Dead French style.
But yeah, so yeah, I knew Alfonso Cuarón from the the third Harry Potter movie, The Prisoner of Azkaban, which also has a great performance by oh, now I'm forgetting his name. You remember the crazy guy in Fifth Element?
Oh, Oldman?
Yeah, Gary Oldman. Yeah, he's
Yeah.
so. And of course he did. He did Gravity after this, right?
I did Gravity like 7 years after this. Then he did Roma like 7 years, or no, 5 years after Gravity.
Yeah, so he doesn't have like a huge profile, but I really like his movies.
Yeah.
I like Roma wasn't like the blow away thing, but it's like a really interesting like look at like Mexico, and it's like, oh, there's like basically like two different.
Yeah, we talked about it on, I think we talked about
Yeah.
that movie, and it's like I did not know anything about Mexico.
Yeah.
Because what I know about Mexico is the people I meet at like my favorite restaurants, the amigos. Like, oh, everyone in Mexico must be happy and like serve food, and it's like, no, it's actually a dark place. You know, those the people that made it here, they're happy, but yeah, and there's like a class system there, and there's racism there too, and it's like, oh, it's just not just us, damn it, it's all over the world. It's depressing.
Yeah, like, but Children, Men, and Gravity was a great 1-2 punch, and he's kind of like, I don't know what he's doing for the rest of the career, but he can do whatever he wants. So
Yeah,
he hasn't made anything bad as far as I know. So
yeah, he's probably just discriminating in what he does. So.
Yeah, and also like, even though he's made great, I think Gravity actually made money. So
yeah, I believe it did.
I mean, you have to when you only have one person that stars in the movie.
Yeah, that's pretty bad when you're just like, so who's the cast? Well,
it's Sandra Bullock.
You mean the non-hallucinations?
Yeah, we have Clooney for a day.
Yeah, we got Clooney for a day, and he comes back in her dreams, making things. He provides her.
Cinematographer is Emmanuel Lubezki, which I didn't. Okay, so yeah, he got to start in Mexico. So, but he's worked.
He's worked with everyone: Tim Burton, Michael Mann, Coen Brothers, David O. Russell.
Yeah.
Yeah,
you said Michael Mann, right?
Yeah. He's one of the first guys to do like you can do handheld cameras at cinema grade if you do it this way. He kind of invented the ways of carrying and running after him, where it looks like where it's not just shaky and blurry. Yeah. So it's like, oh, people are running and you're obviously running with them, and obviously this camera's in some kind of rig.
Yeah.
It's actually like, oh,
it's a controlled motion, but it gives off a shaky cam like the.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't know if he invented that or he just utilizes it the best. It seems like he's a utilizer of it.
Yeah. Well, yeah, it was like, what was his name? Green something? He did like the later Bourne movies.
Okay. David O. Green or no?
No, I think. Or maybe I think he also did a movie called Greenland, so maybe that's what I'm thinking of. Greenland, a movie not about Greenland.
Yeah.
Oh wait, no, that movie actually is about Greenland. No, I'm thinking of something else. All right, let's just look up Bourne Supremacy. Then we'll get what we want. We also did that in United 93 movie, so.
Okay.
But that was the guy who like championed shaky Paul Greengrass, that's his name.
Paul Greengrass. Okay, yeah.
He championed a whole era of shaky cam, which it was fine when he did it, but after everybody else did it, it wasn't fine anymore.
Yeah, sharp knives in wrong hands after that. It works out.
Oh yeah, he did the. Oh yeah, this guy shot the Birdman movie. He's yeah. Oh, and Revenant too. Yeah, okay, yeah, okay, yeah. That's the same director there too. So yeah, he's done a bunch of stuff. So he's a good cinematographer.
It's weird. He's Mexican, but he's Lithuanian and
Okay,
he's Jewish.
okay.
So he's a Mexican Jewish guy with Lithuanian ancestry,
Huh.
but he's technically just a Mexican. I always love those kind of immigrants because in America that's normal. It's like, oh yeah, this guy's from here, here, there, and now he's from here. But you never think like that can happen in other countries too. No, that's just our thing. You're stealing from us. Only we can have like, why do we have the best Olympic team in the world? Well,
What does it say? What was it you said about Mel Gibson's dad? He's technically Mexican, but that's because of their circumstances.
oh no, Mitt Romney.
Oh, Minorami. Yeah, no.
Yeah, his dad, who was the governor of Michigan back in the day, Romney. I forget what his name was. Yeah, he couldn't run for president because he was technically Mexican, or he's born in Mexico. And it's like that. What, the Romneys? But then you found out it's like, oh no, they were going down there to practice polygamy,
Yeah.
and the Mexican government didn't care as long as you paid their taxes. Like, yeah, do whatever you want, you know.
And I think I may have got this wrong. I think Louis C.K. was actually born in Mexico.
Oh, okay.
His dad is Mexican, although you wouldn't expect him because he has that swath of red hair and stuff like that. But
Yeah.
um, and then we have a slew of writers that worked on this. We get all the different ands. We get ampersands and ands. So,
Yeah. Got the director, one of the producers, 3 different writers.
yeah. Alfonso Cuarón and Timothy J. And I guess I must have deleted his last name. So,
Sexton.
yeah, they. So that's an ampersand. So that means they're a writing team that worked on this movie. And then in between we got and the word David Areta. So he did a rewrite at some point on his own. So he's his own team. And then we have Mark Fergus and Hawk Olsby or Ostby, which I'm
Ostby. That's a weird name. Ostby.
which they're also a writing team, which they're kind of like the third down the list, so they probably did the first draft. I'm assuming.
Like their most famous work I'm seeing was the original Iron Man script, the first Iron.
Which they did after this.
Okay.
Which that's essentially that's the linchpin to the entire Marvel movie franchise.
So they probably made a few $1,000s off that.
Yeah, because they haven't done much since. If you look, they're listed as writing 62 episodes of the Expanse series.
Okay.
But if you look closely, as far as I know, I remember the was it Ty Finnick and Daniel Abrams? They're the James S.A. Corey guys.
Yeah.
They were basically like they were given producer credits, but that was kind of like a ceremonial position when they were there. They didn't really do anything in the first season, and then they're kind of like getting bored. It's like, hey, can we do something? And so then they really started taking over the show in like the second season, and it felt like, which these writing team here guys were also producers. It seemed like they just kind of left.
Yep.
And then because they're like executive producers, they get their name slapped on everything. So I actually don't know how much, if any, work they did on The Expanse.
Yeah. Hey, I'm not upset. Just keep the checks coming in. What you want to do, it's fine with me.
Because you actually have to like dig deep because like Ty Finnick and Daniel Abrams, they get credit on every episode because they get the based on credit for everyone. And then there's a list of these two guys that worked here. They're there for like executive producer or like I forget what the name is, like series created or something like that. And then there's actually a list of the person who wrote the episode, like teleplay by, and then there's like 2 listings of like the writing team that worked on the story because writing movies and writing TV are very different. Like a TV show has like a writer's room full of lots of people and everybody contributes, and then eventually somebody just has to get a credit for it. Whereas in movie, it's more of like a individual experience where everybody's fighting over who actually wrote the movie. Whereas like in television, it's like, hey, we're just working. Hey man, we're working together on this. We got to work together. Um, so yeah, that's who wrote this movie. So it seems like it would be a mess, but I don't know. I'm feeling like Alfonso Cuarón came in and just took out more dialogue. It's like, all right, I wrote this. Kind of did like the did like a no, I'm forgetting his name. Keanu Reeves like pass on the movie. It's like, let's reduce all their dialogue.
Yeah.
And have more moody think pieces and visions in the
Well, it's just like Die Hard. It's like, yeah, how do we take that book and make it into a movie? Well, we basically chop everything out and kind of do our own thing.
Like no, I mean the book's pretty close to the movie, but they just kind of made it more fun and less political.
Yeah, there were things in the book that were different.
Well, yeah, there it was about like eco terrorists like fighting against an oil company, and then they made it. Hey, what if some Europeans were robbing a bank from a company? Wouldn't that be funner than an eco terrorist with like an agenda? Now it's just a German that wants money.
Yeah, evil Germans sell. We like that. Yeah.
And of course, the the novel by P.D. James, who I didn't know who that was, and I didn't know it was a woman until he told me. So, but now that makes sense because a lot of women had to pretend they make their names sound like they were men to get anywhere. So, and of course the cast is Julianne Moore, Clive Owen, and Chiwetel Ejiofor, and then we'll have a bunch of other people that pop up. We'll talk about, like you said, Michael Caine. So. I always thought the interesting about this movie, I guess what struck me about it is I realized that like in the time period it takes place, like the character of Clive Owen would have been born the same time I was. Like, oh, this is my future, huh? This is when I have to like grow up and like run things in an apocalypse. But yeah, here the future's 2027, so now it's 2024. So it's like, well, it's like we only got 3 years to get to here. So, some ways we're close, and some ways we couldn't be farther away. So, well, that's
we're not at zero population growth, but it is the brakes have been slammed on. But that's not because people can't have children. It's because people can't afford to have children.
Yeah. No, what was I gonna say?
Oh, you're talking about this was your future?
Yeah.
2027, yeah.
Oh yeah, that's like. So this movie feels like really because like we watched War of the Worlds last week, and it had like pretty good special effects, but it feel like it's an early 2000 movie. Like they're getting there with the special effects, but it's still like a good looking movie. This movie feels like it was made yesterday.
Yeah,
and this movie is now 18 years old, which feels weird.
Yeah, that doesn't seem right. Well, a lot of the things that this movie predicted, like that is how a lot of things look now, except the dirtiness.
Yeah.
Like the big billboards that just change and have like just TV screen quality advertisements running. Like we had to have all kinds of rules passed around here because they were putting those up on the freeway here.
Yeah.
You're driving along and some dude's talking at you like, what the hell? They had to take some of them down because it's like that's just too distracting. But now you have those,
especially when they have like a screen that's mostly white and then it just becomes a flashlight blinding you on the road.
Yeah. But now you go downtown in places and stuff, it's like they have those kiosks and it's just a flat screen with there's not much depth to it and it's just advertisements. It's like, drive a car or whatever, or drink coffee. Human again, but it is like really crazy. And then of course you have the ones at the gas stations that I think those went away, but
no, they still got it. But there's always 8 buttons, 4 on each side.
Yeah,
and the if the button next to the screen, or it's not really a button, it's like a touch sensitive little oval thing. So usually the second one down on the right, if you press that second one, if you start from the bottom, go 3 up, you touch that one, it'll mute the screen. So
Oh, okay,
you don't have
good.
to listen to advertisements. We have a
Because
lot of places they'll
some of
put
those are
that.
like full volume too.
Yeah. Because like a lot of the places around here, they have a sticker that says mute on that button, but a lot of places don't. But I always know hit that one, that's the mute button. So
Like the one at my get where I get my club at the Shop and Save Club, like the Sam's Club or whatever. Now it has a screen like this big, but it doesn't talk. But it's just constantly scrolling. Like,
yeah.
are you a fat person? We have all fat people care that you would need. Get this and that, and here's a cane, and and all this stuff. And it's like, we got you covered, fatty. But they don't talk. But it's like full color screen, and like the things like move in and out. And it's like, yeah, I remember like in 2006, like, well, they're never gonna have that. And now this is craps everywhere.
Yeah.
It's
But it's somehow like either cleaner or way dirtier than it is in this movie, where it's everything here is it's just technology covered in a film of dust,
yeah,
which I don't know, like contributes to how the look of the movie and kind of like, oh, things are kind of degraded. And it's like, well, underneath there's something that can work, but it's neglected. So
yeah. There's really no future scene here,
yeah,
so it's like, well, we don't need to like clean anything because we're all gonna be dead in 20 years.
um. So yeah, I guess we'll get started. We have Act One. It's like, well, I remember there's the Strike logo that comes up, which that was a company that I guess lasted on for only about 10 years. But I remember them because they produced the Dawn of the Dead remake with Zack Snyder. That was like his big break.
Oh, okay.
Um, and then then they have, if you look at their history, they have like a few good movies, but then a lot of things like, oh yeah, that tanked. So then now they don't exist anymore. So I think they're an offshoot of like Universal or something like that. So I think Universal owns all their stuff now or something.
Oh, okay.
But yeah, we get like a news voiceover. Like the thing I picked up is like it's day 1000 of the siege of Seattle, but there's just a bunch of stuff like this, just like crazy news reports. Because like you're off camera, or we were offline last time talked this. You're saying like how in the book you get more description of like what's going on in America, and it's like a nightmare there compared, because like here it's like we get like the UK, and it's like it's all screwed up and not working, but it's like the only place that is working by comparison.
Yeah, it's because it's like Britain stands strong. It says because everyone, yeah, the rest of the world's in chaos because everyone's either become a religious maniac or a nihilist.
Yeah.
And so yeah, like in America, it's like once people stopped being able to have kids, it was like God we must atone for our sins, and so like half of America just turned against the other half, and people just started killing each other, and so yeah, it's really bad.
And wait,
And that
is it
led to
implied that there was a nuclear weapon that was set off in America or something like that?
a couple of them, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, one in New York for sure. But yeah, there was because in the book there was like a wider nuclear war,
Okay.
but it was
Was that a result of not having kids, or just
yeah,
the
yeah.
incident?
Well, and just countries collapsing.
Yeah, yeah.
It was a nuclear war basically used as a way to stop migration. So I think like in the book, like Eastern Europe got nuked by Russia to stop a border rush. Because they talk a little bit more about, because if stuff like this started happening, the number one problem, like especially like in 2024 right now, would be like the world is way more dependent on the giant Western nations for food than they were before COVID. So now it's like, oh, if any disruption, like they were talking, they doped this thing out, like, oh, if terrorists in America like attacked some of those nuclear power plants, like on the Mississippi, which is where like half the water we use to irrigate crops comes from in this country, it's like that could be an extinction event because the world would just start to starve because all of a sudden America is like food production's cut in half. And it's like, well, the Americans are going to eat with what's left. The rest of the world, however, and if you look at what's going on in Bangladesh and stuff right now, or like 30% of the people are just trying to leave the country because there's not enough food, and it's like it's really scary. So yeah, in the world of Children of Men, where you have nukes going off, now the thing is, there's less mouths to feed every year,
Yeah.
so that you have that factor working for. But the only way Britain exists is because that is why, because they're not using up whatever resources they have left on their island and whatever, holdings they have in the rest of the world, because every year there's like less people to drink the booze and eat the food. So you do have that parallel clock running.
So yeah, we get news reports of more bad goings on. Britain has closed its borders, which I don't know. Is this incidental, or is this supposed to be a parable of America at the time?
I don't. Well, you see one sign later in the movie that says where the Bexhel Refugee Center is part of what the British Department of Homeland Security, which they just threw in there on a wall as a sign.
Yeah.
Which Department of Homeland Security always sound like a more British than American name, so it's weird that we have it and they don't. You think we'd have something like Department of National Security? We'd always give it a generic name. Because in American English, when it comes to naming things, we tend to favor the German side of the language, where it's just like, no, it just is what it says it is. It's Federal Bureau of Investigation, Central Intelligence Agency. It's like, yeah, it's exactly. We don't mix it up. The British make it fun.
The Minister of Laughs.
Yeah.
What's he control? The drug trade.
Yeah. Well, it's like that band Joy Division. I mean, that was a part of the Ministry of Propaganda during World War II over there. It's like, yeah, I could see them. They would do that. We would just call it Happiness. Division of Bureau of Happiness. Happiness will be achieved, or the beatings will resume.
I always like that in Control. It's just the ominous X-Files agency is called the Federal Bureau of Control.
Yeah.
It's like, what do they control? It's like, oh man, you don't want to know.
I like some of the weird slogans for agencies, like the KCIA had a good one.
Yeah.
And that was real. And then what was the Evangelion, like that organization, Nerva?
Yeah.
Like they're saying God is in his heaven, all is right with the world. We should have names like that. It's like, what does that mean? It's like, oh, who knows? Figure that out.
Does that have a deeper meaning, or is that something just on the surface?
That's what makes it fun.
Yeah.
Both.
But yeah, I think this was just kind of an extrapolation of what was going on. Like, well, what if it got really bad in U.S.? Like, what would happen? Which,
yeah, remember when George Bush was the worst thing that ever happened? Oh boy. Oh. God, I pine for his folksy wisdom right now.
And even as evil as his cabinet was, like, they were competent people that you could convince if something worked better.
Competently, reliably evil, and but what that the bottom dollar was what came first.
Yeah, there's a way you could convince them.
Yeah, Dick Cheney, if you just waved money around, he'd be like, maybe we won't go quite that far to the dark side.
Not doing war would make us more money? Okay.
All right. I'm having a heart attack right now. So no, not now. Now we got people like, yeah, this will clearly lead to the end of the world, and they'll just like flap their tongue against their forehead or call you a communist. Yeah, it's like, now it's really dumb. And it's sad because it was better when it was cool.
But I mean, but yeah, this feels like, I know there was I bought it and I never even played it. There was a Ubisoft game series called Watch Dogs, which again is going on that whole thing of like, oh, you're being watched by the government, and this is how everything connects together, and like, they don't even need a camera in the room. They can still see you just through like ambient, like the resonance of electricity and build an image that way.
They can simulate what they think you're doing, and it's almost accurate. which is all scary and frightening. But again, like I said, we've devolved now into like the government is really spying on us all the time. I mean, they don't have to spy on us to know what we think. We're putting it out on the internet for free.
Yeah.
The problem is they're too dumb to do anything with it. Like, please come and arrest me, secret police. No, we couldn't get gas for the truck to come and arrest you because it's like, this is the most disappointing dystopia ever.
But like that one was about like I can't remember what it's called, but it was like Watch Dogs like 3. There wasn't even a main protagonist. You like switch to a different person, that kind of a random person, because it's kind of meant to be like, oh, this like revolution is like faceless and stuff like that. It's anybody. You could be an 80-year-old lady, or you could be like a 19-year-old black guy.
Just meaningless resistance.
Yeah.
It's like your little part with no larger coordination. Yeah.
But there was all just like examination of like what's the worst that could happen with Brexit, which like this movie feels like what's the worst that could happen with Brexit, but that wasn't even on the table at the time. So.
No. Well, this movie channels all the current and stuff that's gone on in the UK in the last 10 years. But it's like it all happened like now no one likes immigrants and the country's economy is falling apart. It's like, but for very different. In this, it wasn't a self-inflicted wound. Yeah. It's like, that's what's sad. It's like these people are just reacting with the worst, most authoritarian solutions possible to something that's being imposed on them. Unlike Brexit and all the other things where it's like, let's put our own neck in the noose. You know, it's like, that's what's sad about what's going on now. It's like, it's same dystopia, just different root cause, you know?
And weirdly the same apathy.
Just oh yeah. Stiff upper lip. Which always for me was code for like, just don't give a shit. So, so that's what you're really, okay, yeah. Just don't care.
It's not your problem. What can you do about it? You're right.
Don't get above your station. Don't overthink things. Just keep calm and carry on.
Yeah. Which I feel like that, because that was something for like World War II, right? But then it kind of came back around this time this movie was out.
Yeah, well, yeah, all that old stuff. Because the World War II occupies at least if all the British historians I've read explain it to me in a way I can understand, World War II occupies a weird place in the minds of people there because it was their last, like, we are the glorious empire defeating evil. And also, as soon as it was over, the Americans pushed us off the end of the table and said, nope, this is ours now. And that's what had happened. It's like, oh no, it was the best of times. It was the worst of times.
Well, also we told them they couldn't have colonies anymore. So
yeah,
which is very American. So that's on brand.
Yeah, it's like, yeah, the colony thing never worked out. We don't like that. Oh, so you want to do something better and more moral? No, we're just going to do it through corporations and banks. We're just not going to formally colonize these countries. We're going to economically colonize them. It's like, well, wait, we were going to do that too. It's like, well, you bankrupted yourself fighting the Germans. It's not our fault. We were just over here being ignorant corn farmers, right?
So we open on a coffee shop, and then people are surrounded. It's full, completely full.
Yeah.
I don't know, Nathan. I don't go to a coffee shop. I always hear about coffee shops being full. Is this?
Yeah, this is accurate.
This is accurate? Okay.
Yeah, that's why I have elaborate. Well, the reason we didn't do the show yesterday is I was going to the coffee beanery.
Okay.
Because we're taking a tour of the place.
Yeah, we're going to the Bean Fortress. I didn't know if like your text to speech was doing something weird. I was like, okay.
Did it come across Bean Fortress?
Yeah.
Hold on.
I think. Yeah, we're going to Bean Fortress tomorrow.
Hold on a second. You probably thought he was blowing you off. It's like, oh, fuck you then if you don't want to do the podcast. Bean Fortress, my ass. So, no, we went to the coffee bean place because I don't pay for coffee. I'm not into like, hey, let's all three get coffees. It's like $20. Yeah. It's like, no, stop. We could have a second house by now. Those memes on the internet.
Yeah, so people are struck with the sadness of the report of the world's youngest person being stabbed to death. This is Baby Diego, and even though he's 18, everybody still refers to him as Baby Diego.
He's the youngest human alive.
And he was stabbed to death because he refused to sign an autograph because obviously his fame made him an asshole, and also his fame was presented by assholes. So
Yeah.
like, I don't know if this is a commentary on like reality television. Like I know this was definitely around at that time, but it's also just a brilliant thing because we see the Clive Owen character like, yeah, who cares? But obviously in this world, like it means something to everybody. But he's like, haven't you suffered enough? Why bother to care about this?
Yeah. Was everyone acting like they knew the guy?
Or
Oh,
that
this was in the book too, so
okay. Yeah, why does everyone act like they knew the guy, and why do they pretend like he was a good person?
yeah.
I mean, you shouldn't be stabbed to death for refusing to sign an autograph, but yeah, that's definitely seems like something would happen. So yeah, we're introduced to Theo Farron. That's Clive Owen's character. Interesting name. I don't know if it has any deeper meaning, but he
It was
makes
a name from the book.
what's that?
I think it was a name from the book
Okay.
too.
He makes his way to the front of the coffee line. He's undisturbed by the shocking news.
Yeah, everyone's literally glued to the TV, and he doesn't care. He's just straight ahead.
But also like this is like we hear all the things before this is presented as like the main storyline, where it's basically like here's these awful things where like hundreds of people are dying and terrible things are happening, but baby Diego died, and that's the most important thing.
Yeah.
So he just orders a black coffee. People are crying, and he just leaves with his black coffee. We get titles: London, 16th November 2027. We're also this is where we're shown like we see the sides of buildings are just covered in like LCD screens or whatever, and like they're still like nice looking LCD screens, but they just have a film of dust over them that's like, well, I think still works, but it's clearly dirty. So.
Yeah, and London looks more like turn of the last century London because there's like moped, like rickshaw things in
Yeah.
addition to cars, and of course they're like belching smoke, like just like these engines were just like hand built 2 days ago from something that broke.
Yeah, all the cars like are futuristic, but they all look like they've been modded. So I don't know if they're just
Yeah.
we're not making new cars anymore, so you just got to mod your car or something.
Yeah, we can go. I have the cars in this movie brought up. It was
Okay.
there's none we've heard of, but there are. It's interesting what they did.
Okay. Yeah, there's some things where it's just like that's a trunk. Like what the hell is this car? And there's some things where it's just like looks like a taxi with some weird bulbous thing thrown on the front of it. So
Yeah.
um so yeah, he leaves. He sets his coffee on top of what do you call those newspaper stands? Newspaper stands.
Newspaper kiosk
Yeah,
of
yeah.
newspaper vending machines. Yeah.
And so he's pouring booze into his coffee, and the camera kind of points back where he came from, and then you just see the coffee shop blows up. You're like, oh shit!
And he spills his whiskey and coffee
Yeah.
or scotch. He's actually drinking Bell's Scotch.
And then you hear like the kind of like the buzzing of the ears is like from the blast, and then you see like yeah, the ringing of the ears, and then like a lady walks out of the coffee shop holding her arm, and then we just cut to titles: "Children of Men."
One of the best openings of a movie ever. I did like the opening of the movie. I don't know why that scene sticks with me because it's like that's believable. It's
Yeah.
like, oh yeah, I could imagine like if a bomb went off in a big city like that, a crowded place, it would be a nightmare like that.
Well, also it's like what immediately happens, like as a result of it, he goes to work and he asks his boss like, "Hey, this baby Diego thing kind of affected me where I thought, can I go home?" And then he doesn't answer him, but he ends up going home. But like he didn't tell him like, "Hey, a bomb went off. I need to go home."
Yeah.
Because he knew like nobody would care if a bomb went off, but they knew they'd care if baby Diego died.
Yeah, I just like watched a woman like carry her arm out and knowing she's gonna die pretty quickly from that. It's like, yeah, it's this baby Diego thing's affected me more than I thought. And his boss is like indifferent. He's like staring at a computer screen.
Yeah.
They have weird computers in this world too. They're kind of strange angel glowing things.
Yeah, Yeah, I can't remember. Are they like thin screen or are they still like kind of CRTs here?
Oh, they're thin screen.
Okay, all right.
Yeah, because this movie was considered revolutionary for a few like things brought to screen that are now normal.
Well, I thought like The Office, I thought they had kind of like CRTs, but they just kind of look better. But then later on, there's stuff where it's just a computer screen is just basically a translucent piece of plastic with
Yeah,
stuff on it. So
yeah,
which again, that's a bit too far than what we have now. I mean, you can get that, just way too expensive. It's not like everywhere, but even
yeah.
here, it's not everywhere. But yeah, there's a hodgepodge
Yeah,
of
my
things.
computer screen is about like this thick right now. It's not like just a flimsy sheet that I can pick up and
Yeah.
throw around.
Again, they have those, but
Yeah,
they're about $10,000.
yeah. No, I like something that lasts a while.
We cut to Theo's walking through his metal detectors out of his office job, which I can't. Do you know what he does?
In the book, he works at a government ministry.
Okay.
I forget what it is because he in the book and the movie, his cousin, who plays a much bigger part, like he is related to someone who runs the or has a high government position.
Yeah. Okay.
That's how he got his job.
Okay. Yeah, I figured it was a government job. I didn't know if it had anything to do with like the immigrants, because they do go to him to get papers, but ultimately it's to go to his brother, not to him. It's not anything he can do. It's just because his brother's like the Ministry of Art or whatever, and he has like higher ups or something like that. So
Yeah.
Yeah, we see more people are mourning Baby Diego, which I finally get to write mourning that way. Because that's always something I screwed up. I wrote MOURNING for like, it's like, it's the next day, it's morning. I always wrote the wrong morning.
Oh, I see what you mean. I thought you were talking about spelling it in some British way.
No. Sometimes I always spelled gray with an E, which I guess is a British thing. So,
I always did too. But yeah,
but it's
you'll
only
see.
been recently where it's like, oh, I guess that's wrong, and everyone spells
Yeah.
gray with an A. So I was like, all right. Which I think I spelled it with an E because that's what was on the crayon.
I think so too, because I still spell it with an E. I don't think about it. But I have paints here. Now the paints from Europe, like Aggressor Gray, GREY.
Yeah.
But yeah, the American like model paints are it's AY, but I never knew that.
Yeah. Yeah, sometimes I'll get respellings in when I write something, especially my notes, where it's like, that's the British way. Do you want it the other way? It's like, oh yeah, I guess so. So I think I always write theater with RE instead of ER. I don't know why. I think it just makes more sense to my fingers.
Yeah.
So I'll accidentally spell color with a U, but that's like purely by accident. I don't mean to do that. I never spell tire with a Y, so I don't do that. So.
Even though I think that would be cooler.
Yeah.
It's like, what's that? Is that an ancient symbol? It's like, yes, it's a wheel. It's a symbol of renewal and fertility. It goes around and around.
So yeah, Theo uses the opportunity of the Baby Diego stuff to leave work, so he goes and talks to his boss, who like basically only acknowledges him, and then like he's like about to swallow pills, which I don't know, is like, is he like killing himself at work or what's going on there? But they just cut away. That's left to you what that means. So we know he gets away from work. So
I think everyone's on a lot of substances in this movie.
yeah. There's a newsreel of like world collapse, but it insists Britain is doing well. This is where you get the what do they say? What's on the propaganda for like Britain strong or whatever? Or
Britain stands strong. Yeah. Or Britain stands alone, maybe. That could be. I'm not sure.
No, stand strong is it?
Yeah.
There's like you see some graffiti as he gets off the train that says avoiding a fertility test isn't a crime, which is just a thing off in the background they never talk about. It's like, oh yeah, I guess if this is your world's problem, government would definitely get in every woman's business. Like, hey,
oh, yeah.
Can you have a baby? Then Theo walks by some cages of immigrants, which he again, he's the perfect character to just brush off everything. He's like, wait, what's this? And he's like, it doesn't matter. um, then Theo meets up with Jasper, which is played by Michael Caine, who picks him up from the train. So they're driving out the country. We see I think it's burning horses. There's a lot of just burning cattle.
Yeah, it's cattle. Yeah.
Which I don't know if this is. I mean, I think around this time they had the mad cow problem. I'm not sure if this is actually a part of that or just something different.
In the book, it's explained they have to burn off crops and livestock because there's the demand for it's going down.
Okay.
But you can't just leave them running around alive because then diseases spread.
Okay. All right. They talk about the bombing because again, like he got off work because Baby Diego, not because he was almost killed by a bomb. I think this is where they first mentioned like they talk about the fishes, which that's like the kind of the terrorist group in this, but
yeah,
but they I don't know. Apparently, after some point, they stopped doing terrorist-like stuff, but they still get blamed for it. But then later on, they are just terrorists. So.
Yeah, they're bad people.
They're currently under a regime that's more friendly, but they're always going to choose violence, essentially.
So Michael Caine is driving a Citroen CX Safari.
Okay.
With the headlights from a Vauxhall grafted onto it. That's what the weird hood and body applique is.
Okay,
so
all right.
That's what they're doing in this movie is they're taking parts of cars we don't know nothing about and putting them together to make it look vaguely futuristic or different.
Yeah, it kind of has like a version of like the Camaros, what they call it, the bra, where it's like the kind of the leather cover on the foot. They kind of have something like that here, but it's like more of an applique of rubber or something. I don't know how to describe it. It makes it weird. So, and futuristic looking, which for the budget they have, they do they go a long way to project the future for a movie that doesn't have that much money. So, even though it's still like $75 million movie, but
yeah,
or something like that, that's still not enough to make future stuff when you're trying to project a world where everything is in the future. And not just here's a tech that projects the future. No, it's like everything is touched by the future in this movie. So what the oh yeah, they see a bus of immigrants drive by them. There's all like immigrants that they've been hunted down and rounded up to take back to put them in an internment camp or whatever. They stop by the road and open up a path that like leads into the woods, which I'm guessing there's just a a fun bit of production stuff because they just park by this road, move a branch, and then just cut to them at the house. So it's like, okay, so they didn't build the pathway to the house. It's like just use editing to get around it.
Yeah.
And then Jasper's house is revealed. Or we see kind of pictures of it, and like you see that he was a political cartoonist, which I'm not sure if he still does that job or what. But now he's like growing weed, and weed's still illegal. So, and of course, in a world
I keep forgetting, like, that would be considered edgy, 2000. Yeah, not everyone else is doing it.
His wife's like catatonic or something. I don't know what's going on with her, but.
I think she got interrogated by the secret police, and they probably did brain damage to her, is what it sounds like.
Okay.
Yeah, because they're in an authoritarian state. There's no like prime minister or anything mentioned in any of this. Now, in the book, it explains because Theo's cousin's basically what they call the warden of Britain in that book.
Yeah,
there's like 5 guys in the parliament because they couldn't have the big parliament anymore because. No one cared because no one cared about politics anymore. No one cared about it because in the
you're not
book,
representing a group of people that are going to change their mind. Like you know who we have.
So essentially, the world collapsed, and this is like what's left. But yeah, in Children of Men, it's quite an authoritarian state.
Yeah.
Now whether it's evil or malevolent or just keeping. A hand over the hole that's the water's pouring in. I don't know. It depends on how you want to look at it. Here, they're seen as sinister, though.
Yeah.
So they're definitely not doing good things, but there's probably reasons why they're doing the things they are.
We don't know how to stop this, but we're going to attempt to control it. So,
Yeah.
And the only thing we know that works is, well, not works, but we know we can put fear into people, and we know we can change people's mind with fear. For so long. We cut to night. Theo reads the instructions to Quietus, which is like a suicide drug, which you explained last week, not on the show, that was more of a more pleasant version of the books, which is basically just drowning old people in your spare time. So
Quietus session was state sanctioned murder, where you went to a public pool and you took dementia patients and stuff in there and you just held them underwater until they died. And then you burned them, and then nobody talked about it because it was they had to hide the fact that they were basically killing off all the elderly people, but they weren't doing it because they were cruel. It's because there's going to be no one left to take care of them. Yeah, so we have to do this, but we don't talk about it. So in the movie, Quietus became a pill, which is probably better because I don't think people would identify so closely with the Theo character if he was drowning Michael Caine in a pool or something. That might be maybe off-putting. So
we see Jasper grows weed because like half the house is like a weed farm, and then he also mentions that weed is illegal. They also smoke some weed here, and like he's trying to get Theo to like, hey, I made strawberry infused weed, and he's like, oh, that's what that is. He doesn't really care.
He tries to get him to cough.
Yeah.
It'll taste like strawberries. Yeah, I don't, because he coughed. He's like, yeah, I don't know.
Jasper tries to tell a joke about a think tank, which I guess is just the Human Project, which is just a vague like group of scientists off in the ether trying to solve the world's problems, but not being in the middle of all of its problems. So
yeah,
it's kind of just
hanging off in the islands off of Portugal in the Azores.
Okay.
Supposedly.
But yeah, like this is just kind of like it's people. It's a joke, but it's also talking about like scientists trying to figure out why they can't like make babies anymore. And then the jokes kind of get like, and then like Theo interrupts with saying like it doesn't matter. It's like it's too late now. It's like even if we can make children, it's like it's not gonna work out. It's like, but he's like, well, let me finish the joke, and then the joke is like some scientist says like, well, I don't know if we can fix this, but this corn tastes great. So like, I don't even know. That's not even funny. So I don't get it. But Jasper's he's high, and so he really gets it. So it's funny to him. So it's morning at Theo's apartment. We get a commercial on the TV for Quietus. It says, Quietus, you decide when. So it's like, okay. So they're just advertising.
The advertising shown, I've watched a frame-by-frame commentary on. There's so many memorable shots in this movie. I'm not going to have time to go through them all, but one that did come up is like Theo's getting up in the morning to an advertisement for a suicide pill that shows a guy basically taking the suicide pill and getting up to face the day, much like Theo is getting up to face the day. And it just shows you how just the unrelenting levels of bleakness that exist everywhere in this movie.
Yeah, and this is supposed to be hopeful, and it's like, well, we're helping you with your decision that you feel guilty about.
Yeah.
And then Theo walks to work past the immigrant cages there's an apartment complex that's being raided, so apparently this is all the immigrants they found in the apartments.
And they're just throwing shit out of this apartment like that would be from 20 stories up. You see it in the background, like, well, this would be lethal to just like, but it's all these old people and people speaking in weird accents in cages, like yelling stuff at Theo, and he's just like walking like he doesn't even know what's going on.
Then a couple of guys put a gun to Theo and put him in a van. Then we cut to he's in some room with a light shining in his face. He's being interrogated by the Fishes terrorist group or whatever they are. Do you know why they're called the Fishes, or are they just called Fish? Is it plural, or is it like a?
I think it was always the Fishes, and I'm not sure because it's something. Him and his wife. Well, they used to be activists of some kind.
Yeah.
And it mutated into they're basically against the authoritarian government.
Yeah.
and that's what they're fighting for, to liberate the people for, Marx, or whatever those groups are always trying to do. But in the end, it turns out, well, you're just as bad as the government. But yeah, so that was, I don't know what the fish is. I know the fish like means something in the Bible, but I don't think that's what they're going for here.
So we're introduced. Yeah, so like the other people are really scary, and then we hear a voice that's more calming. He's like, "We don't need to do this," and it's revealed to be Julian, played by Julianne Moore. So that's an easy character name to get over. It's his ex-wife, and they had a kid, which we saw like the picture of them at Jasper's apartment. So that's why we'd know that. And obviously he doesn't have a kid now, so it's like, okay, that's why he's stunted emotionally. It's like his kid died in a horrible fashion. So, there's like a little debate about what the fishes do, because they talk about how like they stopped using bombs and stuff like that, because like Theon's like, well, he tried to blow me up yesterday. It's like, that's not us. The government did that to pretend it's us, which you don't know if that's true or not. So.
Yeah, you hear that all the time. It's like, just wheels within wheels, huh?
So Julian takes him out of the interrogation room, which they're in this like, I don't know, cool, like it's like a pier with a overtop, or like has a roof over. I'm not sure what is this a famous.
I thought it was a train station.
Okay, that makes sense. Okay. So it's all wood and glass. It's just an interesting thing. It doesn't necessarily look like it's being like upkeeped or anything. Like it seems like it could be fall apart at any moment, but it's a neat looking place. So
yeah.
So yeah, Julian needs transit papers for a refugee, and so she knows that his brother can help them out. So that's why she's going to him. I don't know why she got his goons to put a. Well, maybe hey, go pick up my ex-husband, and then they just put a gun in his face, and then she's like, "Why are you doing this?" You're also being an authoritarian asshole at the end of a gun. So that's the end of Act 1. So we know like, okay, this is the Julian needs papers and Theo can go get them. Act 2, the fishes drop Theo off. In the van on the ride over, we get Luke, played by Chiwetel Ejiofor, who like seems like a well-to-do person, but will just essentially become evil over the course of this movie. Although not like a comical way, it's just kind of like it's like to him it's a practical thing. It's like, well, I just have to be ruthless. This is the only way I can get things done. So, and Patrick, which is his Charlie Hunnam here, so he's the white guy in dreads.
Yeah.
But you also have like another white person in dreads later on. So I guess it's just people finding themselves. I don't know.
It seems like a difficult hairstyle to maintain in a crumbling society, but
I know as far as I know, like the thing about dreads is like you don't wash your hair, so maybe it's maybe it's easier.
Sounds exceedingly gross.
Yeah. Yeah. Dreads can go bad. So,
like I said, 1 on the side, 3 on the top. Thank you.
So yeah, Theo just tells him like, no, I don't want to do this. Even though they say like, hey, we can get you 500,000 pounds, which kind of perks him up. It's like, hey, I could use that money, which you don't know what for, but they give him an offer if he changes his mind. So like they have like a lost dog poster they're going to put up somewhere to talk to him in case he changes his mind. Then we get like kind of a like Theo riding a cab through a bunch of like eclectic venues. Here we get like a bunch of people in like raincoats and stuff that are being kind of like religious, and these are like the repenting people that think like everything is because like we are a affront to God, so we need to repent by like hurting ourselves or whatever.
Yeah. So, announcers, I think they're called, or something
okay.
like that.
And then, it's just more stuff of like immigrants being rounded up. There's like a park with like animals and stuff in it, which actually like, well, that seems pleasant. What's this area like? Oh, this is the rich area because eventually
this is the grounds of Buckingham Palace.
Oh, okay.
Because he's riding in a Bentley Arnage.
Okay.
So, and they're playing this movie has a great soundtrack too. They're playing Court of the Crimson King, yeah, which pops up in movies like all the time. You see that.
Which I thought I got this wrong because when I first heard that song, I was like, "Oh, is this some like forgotten prog rock band from the '70s?" And then when I looked at like the Wikipedia, it's like, no, they're like new. And then I looked at it again this time around. It's like, no, they're from the '70s.
Yeah.
You just don't know who they are. Like, apparently, I'm not sure how many albums they were. The thing I read about them, it said like they were like a way better live band than they were in an album. So that's like kind of like their
I can
downfall
see that. Yeah.
was that like their albums didn't like live up to their live act, so they kind of didn't really grow beyond, their British stature. So, but yeah, this song pops up a lot. Yeah, it's a good song. So it's very, it's very like, yeah, uh, Pink Floyd esque.
Yeah, it's from that. It's just from the when they play those harpsichords. It's all started in the '60s. Because I think this. Where did I first hear of this? I think Stephen King used this.
Oh, okay, huh?
The Gunslinger.
Huh.
Because there was actually the main overarching villain was called the Crimson King.
Oh, okay.
And his symbol was like the eye with a dot in it or something, like a red eye.
Yeah.
And it was always it's like the gunslingers, it's like we got to go to the Crimson King to his court and all that. It's like, there was, because all the worlds connect. It's like, a band wrote a song about that.
Yeah, isn't there stuff like there's like Beatles lyrics that just basically explain what's happening in the book too and stuff like that?
Yeah, there's stuff that's going on, and then like people in like a mining town and like way down, where, because Roland grew up in the city of Gilead at the edge of the wasteland, and like miners in the wasteland, they'll be in a bar singing "Hey Jude." Like, how would they know that? Like, they're playing it on a piano, like the chorus, and it was like, how would they know to do that? And it's like, all these worlds crisscross at certain points, so it's like they're singing the song, it just has a different meaning for them. So there's a lot of all that.
Stephen King's metaverse. Get in there. But yeah, then Theo ends up at like a government facility that's basically just this is just going for the Animals cover of Pink Floyd, right?
Yeah, he's at the Battersea Power Station, which the government made, or the UK government made into what they called the Ark of Art.
Yeah.
Where they're trying to save all the art from around the world. And so they just pull up, and because they've always wanted to save the Battersea power plant, they just don't know what to do with it.
Yeah.
Because it was a great, cool Art Deco power plant, but they don't use that kind of stuff anymore. So in this book, it became like, let's float one of those, pig balloons up there, and it's like, this is our art and our culture.
Yeah, Theo walks into a giant office with like multi-story windows, and then there's the statue of David that's been repaired. It's got like a metal like rod that's connecting a leg and a foot together. So yeah, this is where you pick up on like, they're trying to preserve art throughout the world.
Yeah.
There's a couple of dogs that growl at Theo, and then we're introduced to Nigel, played by Danny Houston, which he usually plays just like an evil British guy. I don't know. You've seen him and stuff, but I don't know if you remember Danny Houston from other stuff.
I remember him in 30 Days of Night. He was like the head evil vampire. It was weird because it's like, that's Danny Houston. That's so weird. Did a good job though.
He will.
I'm trying to think of what else he was. I think he was in. I think he's in. He was in. What's that? What's that ranch thing? Yellowstone.
Oh, okay.
I think he was one of the antagonists of the head evil guy, Kevin. Am I drawing a blank? Who's the main character in Yellowstone? Kevin Costner. Yeah, so he's the main, because he's an evil guy. So like, this guy's another antagonist to him. I don't know. I've only watched a few of those.
Yeah, it's like, it's the #1 show in the world. It's like, you know what I'm doing? I'm not watching it.
Yeah. I tried. Me and Stacy tried. Everyone told us about it. And I was like, this is kind of ridiculous.
Well, they made like two, like, because I think it's still going, but then they made like two like spin-off shows that take place in the past. Like, it's like Yellowstone 1886 or whatever. And it has like, and it's got like no, I can't remember his name, like Harrison Ford in it and stuff.
Yeah, okay, yeah. No, it's not Harrison Ford. It's the other guy. It's the guy who's all on all the memes from when he was in The Big Lebowski. He looks like a cowboy. He's also the new mayor in Family Guy.
Oh,
Uh,
who?
the guy you're talking about who was in those spinoffs of
Oh,
Yellowstone.
I thought Harrison
Maybe
Ford.
Harrison Ford was in one, but I know the other guy. And I can't think of his name. He's Mayor Wild West on Family Guy. He's been he looks like a cowboy. He actually just looks like.
Yeah, no, Harrison Ford is in one of the spin-offs called like Yellowstone, or it's just called 1923, but it's Yellowstone.
Oh, okay.
But yeah, there's another one too. So
There's one like the 1860s or something.
yeah. Let's see here. Family Guy. Wait, New West in Family Guy. Sam Elliott.
Sam Elliott, yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I haven't watched Family Guy in forever, so I didn't know. I didn't know they replaced him, so that makes sense.
Yeah, when Adam West actually died, they replaced him with Mayor Wild West, who's
Oh,
voiced.
okay, that's his name, Mayor Wild. Okay,
Yeah,
I thought they meant like they kept like the character and just gave him a new voice, not that he was a new character. Okay, that makes sense. Um, yeah. So Nigel walks out and greets Theo. That's his. So obviously that's his brother. They have a meal. There's like a kid playing video games on just a piece of plastic, and he's got some stuff on his hand. He's like manipulating with it, which, again, they really wanted to get this over, but never did. Because we had
this was like, this might happen. It's like, nope, that didn't happen.
Because they were trying to show it off in Minority Report, and then this one seems a bit more plausible because it's like, oh, it's like every piece of the knuckle and the finger is articulated like that could be a button, and then it's like, yeah, let's just not do that. But yeah, he's like, also like the kid has like a neck tattoo, and also he's probably he's over 18 because he's not the youngest person in the world, so so you know that. So, but he seems completely distracted and basically like he probably has everything he wants, which is why he's like spoiled and weird, I'm guessing. Or is there something else going on here?
I actually don't know what's going on here. I don't know if he's being preserved because he's some kind of idealized looking person, or if he's just like his cousin's rich enough that like, I want a pretend son. Like this guy's like 25 years old or something, or 30 years old even. We'll give him drugs, make him look young, and he'll be my pretend son. In the book, people like treat dogs and stuff like children.
Yeah, okay.
Like they have christenings and birthdays and stuff. Things that was considered really wild and weird back when the book was written in like the 80s. But it's like, oh no, now that people actually do that. Yeah. But again, it's not imposed on us. We're choosing to do this.
Yeah, it's just easier to take care of dogs. You can go put them down or give them to a kennel when you're not. If you can't take care of them
in a hot car and you don't go to jail. So.
Because that's like the downturn of midlife crises. Because it's like, boomers, like they could go get Corvettes in their midlife crisis. Generation X, they got Harleys and motorcycles, and my generation we're getting like perfect emulation of old video games.
Yeah,
just because it costs less and it matters more to us.
Yeah, you don't have to leave the house to do it.
No. Yeah, again, it's cheaper to take care of a dog. Although now they're just making it as expensive now. It's like,
I was gonna say, I just went out and got a prescription for my dog today that was almost $100. So it's this is. I haven't spent. I was talking to the dog about it. I don't think she appreciated the gravity of the situation. So I was looking at her. I was like, I haven't spent $77 on pills for me in my entire life. I know we have insurance and stuff, and it's a different structure, but you got to understand, Bailey. You got to stop being allergic to everything. You're meant to like tear like the guts out of deer and run through the woods and stuff like that, and you're literally getting the sniffles and costing me $100 a month. The dog didn't. She kind of turned her head. I don't think it was really sinking in.
But I hear about people getting like leukemia treatments for their animals, and like, or their animals are diabetic.
Corneal transplant surgeries.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and it's like, I don't remember this ever happening 20 years ago. I think you just let your pet die.
Yeah.
um, no. Uh, let's see here. So yeah, Theo tries to use his influence on his brother to get, or his brother's influence to get immigration papers.
Transit papers.
Well, he's trying to get immigration papers. The best he can do is transit
Oh,
papers.
okay.
Because that's the crux of why Theo is in the rest of the movies, because he has to be with them because he couldn't get immigration papers. Also, there's this little bit where like he where Nigel yells at his son or whatever. It's like, take your pills, and he gets really loud about it, and like no reaction from the kid. He just reaches over, puts his pills in his mouth, and keeps playing his weird Rubik's Cube video game thing. Theo meets with Luke to like complete the deal. Theo's going to have to escort a girl because he only has joint travel papers, because that's the best he could do. And then he gets his money, and then he just goes and gambles. Well, actually, he doesn't get his money yet, but he goes and gambles anyway. So it's like, okay, this is Theo's money problems. He gambles. So, a lady shows off the lost dog photo, and so he collects his winnings and then goes after her, which he's kind of like running late. And he ends up having to chase down a double-decker bus. And then he goes into the second floor of the double-decker bus, and that's where Julian's, like, it's cleared out, and it's just Julian's up there. They mentioned their son for a moment, where he's like, because he's like saying like, "Hey, you just moved on." And she's like, "Fuck you." I didn't just move on. I just couldn't stop what I was doing forever. So, they get off at a stop, and then they move like down through an alley and get in another car. Here we get there's the white lady with dreads, who's like Miriam, and she's like a nurse, and then we get Key, a young black lady. Theo takes a nap, and then when Theo wakes up, him and Julia kind of like playfully reminisce. They talk about like, them being revolutionaries and stuff like that, which Key is very like, doesn't like him at first, but here she kind of like lightens up. It's like, oh, he is a fun person. He's just a complete asshole. So,
Like, because she immediately acts like, who is this? He looks like a drunk. I want this guy around.
And then they're all having a happy time, and then we also see like you can also see stuff in the car where you can see like the heads up display, like a full heads up display, which they kind of have the stuff, but it's not as cool or well done in this movie.
Yeah, it's basically a red light that flashes at you. Because I had that in a couple of my Fusions.
Yeah.
Now it does it. It doesn't. They don't project the light on the windshield. It projects it through like the computer screen.
Yeah.
It'll say collision, because mine always does it if people slow down in front of me and are making a turn and I'm just going around them. Because I'm timing it, so like they're gonna pull away as my bumper clears, but the computer like freaks out.
Yeah.
It's like collision, brake assist. It's like, no, stop, and I'm pressing buttons. It's like, this is worse than an accident. Shut up.
I think my truck's supposed to have all that stuff, and I haven't seen it activate at all. So I don't think it's working.
Yeah, you do have that. You have the red lights on your.
Yeah, but I've just never seen them work, or just maybe I never got so close to that they would alarm.
Yeah, I drive pretty recklessly, and so I don't. Yeah, if you're driving a work truck, you got to be more circumspect.
Yeah, suddenly they're kind of in a wooded area, and then suddenly there's a burning car rolling down a hill in an ambush. The heads-up display starts alarming and going crazy, and then they back up, and then just people just like pour out of the woods, and they have like rocks and sticks, and like, are these supposed to be like immigrants hiding, or who are these people?
These would be the same group of people, supposedly. It's not, but the what they call the Omegas, the last generation. Those are the people that were throwing bricks at the train when Theo was on it.
Oh, okay.
So these are just the young people they're just lunatics that ravage the countryside.
Huh. Okay.
That's what they're supposed to be.
Okay.
And by the way, the vehicle they're in is called a Fiat Multipella.
Okay.
And it's pretty much actually what that vehicle looks like. They did a few body changes to it, but it actually was kind of a weird looking car when it was introduced. And it's a 1999 vehicle.
Huh.
So
Okay.
yeah, it's the main car in this that everyone remembers. Is like, what's that weird van thing? It's a Fiat Multipla.
So yeah, Luke throws in reverse, like, and there are people throwing stones at the car, and then the bike pulls up, and like gets close, and then the person on the back of the bike just shoots Julian right in the neck, and then it pulls alongside where it's gonna shoot he's gonna shoot Theo, but then he opens up the door and like flips the bike over and like a pretty cool stunt here.
Yeah.
It's like, yeah, use the car door as a attack vector, which he'll use another time too. so, um, so yeah, that guy's flipped over, and then he's trying to put pressure on Julian's neck, but then she just dies anyways. They pass a bunch of cops, and then one of the cop cars turns around and pulls them over, which are all like kind of panically pulling out their passports as the cop holds guns on them. It's like, well, how are we in the wrong? They attacked us, and then Luke gets out, and like the cops are yelling at him, and he just shoots the cops dead. And now Theo's completely baffled, like, what's going on here? So, like the problem we had going on, we had a legal immigrant, but now we're dealing with like murdered cops, and it's like, where's this going? So, and we have a dead lady in the car, so how are we gonna do this? Then we cut to Miriam's doing some spiritual stuff as they bury Julian in the woods. Theo drinks and smokes like by a tree off in the distance, and he just breaks down in tears, which is probably like the first emotions he's had in 20 years or something. So
yeah,
Luke comes back with another car, and then they leave. They go to a farm that's fish friendly. And now there's kind of like rumblings going on because apparently Julian was the leader of the fishes, and now they're gonna have a vote to elect a new leader. So apparently, Julian was like, they feel like they're being hindered by Julian because she was advocating for peaceful resolutions to the authoritarian government, and they're like, no, we gotta fight fire with fire. So. Theo gets cleaned up in the bathroom and drinks some booze, which he'll do a lot of that. So.
Yeah, that's a kind of a common refrain with.
Well, yeah, he lost the booze in the opening scene, and then he replenishes at Jasper's house. Oh, no, he'll do that later on. Never mind. Theo goes out to smoke, and he gets followed by a guard. Miriam says Key wants to see him, and so Theo goes into a barn where there's a bunch of cows being milked, and then Key's says Julian told her to only trust Theo, and then Key undresses to show off that she's pregnant, so now Theo's freaked out. It's like, wait, you're pregnant? Wait, what? I thought this was all done with. How's this going to help anything? And why am I in charge of it? So, what do they call this in the what's the hero's journey? This is where you refuse the call.
Oh yeah, yeah. The hero denies his call to action or something.
Luke comes in, and there's some goings-ons with the fish. Then we cut to there's a news report of Julian's death, and also we see all the camera footage is being brought up, which at this time London was rife with CCT footage, and here there's just extra stuff just because it's the future. But now you can probably do this stuff, with drones all over the place and things like that. But somehow they've gotten surveillance in the woods, so they know Julian's dead, and they're just waiting to identify the other 3 people in the car. So, so they're so now there's a ticking time clock on them. It's well, we got to get her out of here to the to the human project before the government comes and gets all of us. So yeah, there's debate about what to do with Key and her baby, and like what the government would do with a refugee. Because they're thinking like, oh, if this news gets out, the government's just gonna kill her and her baby, so nobody knows that refugees can like can get pregnant. Which we don't know if that's the thing, but that's what they think the government would do. Um,
Yeah, anti-government people would probably believe almost anything. Of course.
And then they're just purely going to use that as a symbol. It's like, look, we're responsible for new life. Give us power. But they're not. Like, this is all happenstance. Nobody did anything intentionally here. They're just taking advantage of the moment. So, which, considering like how people reacted to baby Diego, like, this, like, okay, yeah, a new baby is going to upset a lot of things. Or make it better. I don't know. but worse people are going to use it to their advantage. So yeah, they need to get rid of the human project, which again they don't know if it's real, but also we find out later on that it's like only Julian knew how to contact them because they had very kind of like clandestine ways to talk to each other. There wasn't direct lines. It was always kind of just like messages scrawled places, and then people get like a telephone game of just people passing on messages, and then like you're getting the eighth person in the line that tells you, and then you say something back, and then it goes through 8 people and back to them, and nobody knows if anything's the same. Luke leaves it as, Theo just suggests make it public. They're like, what are you, crazy? They're just going to kill her then. Then Luke leaves the decision with Key, and then she decides to have the baby at the barn, and then they'll go find the human project. So like, all right. Then we cut to night. Theo sees like a commotion outside. One of their guys. Well, it's Patrick pulls up in the bike, which like, okay, this this is the people that killed Julian. It's like, oh, okay. And then we know one of them's Patrick, and I guess the other guy's his brother, who's like about to die. Which like he said he got shot, right? So this isn't him dying from the car impact.
Oh, I thought it was from the car crash.
Okay. Well, because I thought he mentioned something like getting shot, or maybe he just say they're getting shot at, but it's the car crash that did have been. So,
yeah, because that's like a thing in this movie is like Theo never uses guns.
Yeah.
He always does other things to thwart people. It's like creative and it works. Until then he beats a guy to death with a brick, but that also works. Like I was pointing a gun at him.
But Patrick's gonna blame him for the death of his brother and will hunt him down for the rest of this movie. So that's kind of a thing going on here. It's like you tried to kill us. Why is it my fault that your brother died?
Yeah, it's the price of that's the price of tea.
So that's when when everything's wrong is here is because like, oh, they assassinated their leader to gain more power. So, let's see here. So yeah, Patrick wants to kill Theo, but Luke's like, yeah, hold on, we'll kill him in the morning or whatever. Theo goes to Key's room and like basically reveals that they killed Julian and they have to leave. Also, Miriam's kind of freaking out and he's like putting his hand over. It's like, no, you're one of them. You're just like, you need to shut up. But then Miriam ends up going with them because she's just worried about Key. So
she's like a midwife, I think, in real life, or her character was also a midwife.
Yeah.
Which would be way out of practice at this point, but
at
least you would know what was going on.
Yeah. They sneak out. It's like dusk outside now. Theo sneaks around. He's like trying to take a car. They eventually get into a car. Well, he takes some wires from one car because one of the guy grabs the keys out of it or something. So he uses that to hotwire the other car or something.
Yeah.
So yeah, they get the car. They just start rolling it down the hill. And then like there's a couple of guards at the entrance, like they're about ready to shoot at him, and Luke's running out like, no, don't shoot him. That's the pregnant ladies in there. So Theo gets a car rolling down a hill, and he's like trying to roll start it, which I'm guessing it has to be a manual transmission then, right? Or
yeah, that's the way. I've never heard of roll starting a regular car by going from neutral to drive because you would have to energize the. Yeah, it wouldn't work. Okay. Yeah.
Although, like, man, I've roll started a manual transmission car with basically no downhill stuff. So I'm like, I'm just like, man, how can you get this to work? That's a big hill.
Yeah,
you,
this thing should be like,
you get a lot of tries with that hill, man.
yeah, you can pump that clutch at least 10 times.
I had to like run with my car, get it going about 2 miles an hour and roll start. Like here he's going like 10. Like, man, you got to be able to drop that clutch and get that thing pulled over. But yeah, this is all about tension. This is also where Charlie Hunnam really showing off his athletic skills because he just runs down the car.
Yeah.
And then Theo just uses a door and hits him into a bay of hail. So again, using a door to thwart Patrick. So although here he doesn't die. Also, he just gets right up to him, is pointing the gun in his face, and he's yelling at Luke, "Can I shoot him?" So he does have some restraint here. So, but Luke's just worried that like he'll fuck up trying to shoot him and then like kill Theo or kill Key somehow. So,
When if he was thinking, all I need to do is just shoot the tires out of the car. It's
yeah,
like, but never think of that.
Well, they don't want any bullets in the direction. They don't want it.
Yeah, you're talking
it.
to the only person in the world who's having a baby. Don't want to just fire guns in their general direction.
Yeah, it's like that. Oh, what is that in the Broken Arrow? Where he's like, "Can you please not shoot towards the thermonuclear weapon?" Or
please don't shoot at the thermonuclear bombs or something.
Or the same thing, like kind of in Fight Club, where it's like, "Don't shoot at like a 10,000 pounds of nitroglycerin or something like that." So,
and then what was it? The Hunt for Red October.
These don't react well with bullets.
Yeah, there's things in here that don't react well to bullets.
Yeah, the car stops at the bottom of the hill. Theo gets out to push it as Miriam like starts the car. So eventually, he was just screwing something up. It was under a lot of pressure. So
yeah, I don't know if I could jump start a car if I was being stopped.
We cut to them they go to Jasper's house and hide out in the woods. Theo finds Jasper in a box of quietus, and so he thinks he killed himself, but then Jasper opens his eyes and scares Theo. So it's kind of a humorous moment. So then we have Jasper's cooking for everyone because he sees there's a pregnant lady. It's like, so now he's not just cynical for his own amusement, now he actually has hope. So they talk about the Human Project and how to get there. They also talk about like why Theo doesn't have any like faith or hope anymore, which he's just kind of like eavesdropping on the conversation. He's not a part of the conversation. Because this is when he's like just refilling his booze. So, which he doesn't have a flask. He just has like kind of a flat case of whiskey, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, it's just like a little bottle of it's a brand called Bell's Scotch whiskey. It's the most popular Scotch whiskey in the UK.
Okay.
I've had a bottle of it before. It's actually not bad.
Okay.
But it's not regularly sold here, so it's kind of expensive. But I was surprised when I saw it in the movie. It's like, I've had that.
I just have it because it's a movie prop.
Well, I had it before the movie, and I saw it in the movie. I was like, cool, I should get some more of that. And then I found out, well, they only imported it for like 2 years and they quit because there's so much booze here. We have Tennessee, so that's like fair to the rest of the world. The rest of the world has Scotland, and we have Tennessee. It's like the best booze in the world comes from there. So.
Theo's trying on shoes because he like in the hurry he didn't get to put on shoes, so he's like constantly like having feet problems. He's got his Die Hard moments that pop up every now and then. So he's trying on shoes, but I don't think it fits, or flip flops. So he'll basically just have flip flops for the rest of the movie. Well, except for the very end, he gets some shoes at the very end.
Yeah.
Miriam is doing shadow boxing on the front lawn because that's just kind of how eccentric people are now. Which again, this is supposed to be my generation here. So, but here it's supposed to be that like all faith is gone, so people look for different things to act out their emotions, and so they kind of find religion and just weird spiritual stuff again. But
yeah,
I'm guessing this wasn't how Miriam was before everything started going to shit. So.
I mean, she was probably on like the left because she was like some kind of midwife.
Yeah.
So she was probably like somewhere in the same world that Theo and his ex-wife were in, kind of that side of
Yeah.
politics. But then it quickly becomes like, um, yeah, in a world that's gone to shit or whatever. I mean, I even know people that are like have that philosophical bent and they've just gone completely off the deep end because like certain people get elected and it's like my country's dead and it's like, oh, okay, calm down, take a breath. But yeah, it's so yeah, that's a thing. I mean, know in the book like religion's basically been like state banned
Yeah.
because it just leads to violent death cults at this point. So it's like, yeah, let's not do this.
Yeah, Key's like mentioning that Miriam looks weird. It's like, and then, but then Theo says like, you think she's just loony? He's like, no, I think she's just being genuine. So like, that's her trying. She's not doing great at shadow boxing. She's kind of tripping over herself, trying to like raise her leg to kind of do a crane motion or something. So, Key's like braiding Jasper's wife's hair. So that's, um, Key doesn't know who the father is, which this kind of suggests that there's just like casual sex that's frequent with, especially with this Omega generation here, because like it doesn't matter, nobody's gonna get pregnant. So
Yeah.
we don't know what kind of super STDs are around, but that's who cares. So
We got penicillin for that.
also, she talks about after she like knew she was pregnant or thought something was weird, she thought about killing herself, but then she like then something like she knew she had like a life, then she like inside her, and then she kind of changed her mind. It's like, well, I guess I better fight. So then Jasper comes back and he has a plan to break into prison to catch the boat out of there to find the human project, which is kind of just a fun little thing. It's like, we got to break into prison. So which that's in a lot of movies, but
Yeah.
then it's night. Jasper's hanging out. Theo fills up with booze. Oh, here's what they're talking about. Theo and Julian meeting as protesters and having a kid. And Theo and Julian's kid is named Dylan, and they find out there was a flu pandemic that struck Dylan and he died because of the flu. So that's why Theo has no hope anymore and is very indifferent to everything. So which I think they said that was 20 years ago, so like that must have been in the midst of nobody could have kids anymore, and so
So they knew they weren't going to get another chance. Yeah. So and then you run him over, and it's like, oh wow.
Then we cut to morning. Alarms going off, which this was like a punchline joke of just this crazy music that alerts everybody what's going on. They see like people are snooping around the woods. And so they start running out of there because they know it's like, oh, the fishes found them, so they're going to come and kill them, so they need to get out of there. Jasper puts everybody in his car, but he's not coming with them. He's saying like he's going to lead them away. So they leave in Jasper's car. Jasper goes back in his house and he gives his wife quietus as he expects to get killed by the fishes, and nobody's going to take care of his wife. So, I thought I remember this being a scene where he puts his wife in like a pool and gives it to her, but I don't know where I remember that from. That must have been a different movie where a guy had to kill his catatonic wife. So,
yeah.
So Theo stops on a hill and watches the fishes talk to Jasper. And Jasper's earlier in the show, he did a pull his finger routine where he farts, and so here's doing the pull his finger routine with Luke, and then just Luke shoots him in the hand, shoots him in the leg, and then does the pull the finger thing again as like his last defiant act, and he just shoots him in the chest and kills him. And then Theo turns around and is like quietly yelling at Miriam because like he's like, no, you're still with them, like you're still the problem, but I gotta take you along. So, but they eventually like. Get out of there and leave. So now Jasper's dead. So I have that being the end of Act 3 or into Act 2. So now we have Act 3. They stop and hide at a school.
Jasper character was Michael Caine, was based on his friendship with John Lennon.
Okay.
He's just going to try to channel John Lennon.
Oh, okay.
I guess like gross fart humor and stuff. Like John Lennon was like that with his friends.
Oh, okay.
And it wasn't something because John Lennon always had kind of this serious public, like, I'm an artist, but with his friends, he liked raunchy humor and joke. So this was like, Michael Caine said this was kind of an homage to his friendship with him.
Huh.
So if you look at how he looks in the movie and the glasses he's wearing, it's like, yeah, he's just being John Lennon. But
Okay.
you don't think of it at the time because it's like, oh, this is.
Well, I thought that was like, I thought he was a different person, and then when the stuff happened, he just kind of became a hippie. So do you think he's just like this person the entire time?
I'm guessing.
Okay.
I guess just again, him and Theo probably have this activist background.
Okay, yeah.
Because his wife was an activist too, and he was like a cartoonist.
Yeah.
So usually those people aren't. I mean, there are right wing cartoonists, but not a lot.
No. Not good ones?
Yeah, they're not good. They're not funny. They're always trying to make like Hitler seem normal.
Yeah, it's like the joke is always just sexism or racism. It's not an actual joke or like says anything.
It's not like a clever turn of phrase. It's like, no, making people hate themselves is good. It's like, no, this.
They stop and hide at a school because those aren't being used anymore. So that's a good place to go. So yeah, Theo, he's like sleeping in the car, so he goes into school. A deer runs by just to make it weird. Because there's not a lot. Because this is kind of like, it's kind of giving off the notion of like nature reclaiming things we've abandoned, but it's not really, other movies would go beyond doing that. So this is kind of a notion here, but you still get the idea. So,
there's also hints that the world is in some kind of ecological collapse too.
Yeah.
Because when you go from having billions of humans basically shaping the world to suddenly you don't, it's like, well, things are going to go sideways in a hurry. Because if we're not keeping the reservoirs full and monitoring things, it's like, yeah, nature's going to reclaim things, but it's not necessarily the best manager of its own interest.
Yeah, because this has only happened to humans, right? It's not in animals or anything.
It's as far as I know.
Okay.
But like I said, a lot of animals now, even wild animals, are very dependent on human intervention for survival. And if the humans aren't there and we're not growing, especially if we're not growing crops,
yeah,
they can eat. It's like, oh yeah, the animals are going to disappear in a hurry. And especially if you get like predator, like imagine all the dogs in the Children of Men universe that are just being set free into the wild. And it's like, yeah, they're going to breed with other dogs and you're going to have packs of essentially proto wolves now running around killing all the livestock and everything, all the animals in the countryside because there's no humans there anymore.
Yeah, because I was thinking the weird thing is like they'll have like celebrations of like, oh, the oldest dog in the world. It's like it's 23 years old, and it's like, yeah, I guess it's pretty old for a dog. And then you imagine like, oh, you mean every dog before 2001 is now dead?
Yeah, that's wild.
It's like, yeah, that's the replacement cycle going on here. It's like,
yep.
Wow. There seems to be a never-ending supply too, so
There's too many, actually.
yeah. So yeah, he walks into a classroom. He sees Key on a swing set outside, and then we hear Miriam starts talking. She's in the classroom, and she's talking about when she was a nurse, or she's specifically a midwife. Like, was she a nurse?
As far as I remember, she acted as a midwife here.
Okay.
I think she did hint at having a medical background before that.
Because she talks about like when this all started, there just being like a string of miscarriages. And then followed by like, now there's just a blank chart of like upcoming births. It's like, yeah, there's nothing on the schedule. It's like, oh, this is over. So that's like
already seeing signs of this in Japan, Korea, and China.
Yeah.
Did you hear remember that last year in Korea, they said 34 kids in the whole country signed up for kindergarten?
No.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Their birth rate is like, I think they have the lowest.
Huh.
They're at like -7 replacement in South Korea. And it's like, wow. And they're not turning it around either.
Yeah.
I mean, the whole economy would have to just change into something else. And it's like, that's not going to happen.
Yeah.
Not until the billionaires can just eat all the money in the world. Then I guess, well, it's like, hey, well, we're all going to die now. It's like, oh, is there a disease? It's like, no, we just volunteered ourselves into extinction.
Yeah.
No one can afford to have children because they have to work 15 jobs. It's like ridiculous.
Yeah, I mean that's the like yeah. I keep seeing articles that tries to explain different things because people want it to be like environmental factors. It's like because one people are like saying that's the vaccines stopping all
No,
the
yeah,
children,
okay, yeah, no,
and then other people's like no, it's a common. You can't afford like to have a kid. It's like there's no place to support it unless you're like have hundreds of thousands of dollars, and that's like the minimum.
yeah.
Because like you have a relatively high paying job and so does your wife, you have one kid and you can barely hold it, well, not barely hold it together, but it was hard. So
No, yeah. I mean, we had some nice things happen in our life at one point that made like things so he doesn't have to have a bunch of debt. But that's it. It's gone. It's like it all went towards that.
yeah.
And it's like, and hardly anyone gets that chance. In addition to, yeah, I make a lot of money, and it's like, yep. And if I had 2 or 3 of them, it'd be like fight for the resources. Here's a knife, and whoever comes out gets to go to college. And it's ridiculous. It shouldn't cost that much.
Yeah, because like
And then I mean, that's what they did to people like me, where it's like, yeah, you can't really afford to do like all the stuff you want to. And then the people coming behind me, well, they've just brainwashed them into believing like we're heading towards ecological collapse, and like having a kid is the most selfish thing you could do. And also you're poor and you're not going to make any money and the economy sucks. And it's like, yeah, and we're doing this why? To just serve greed, because at the end of the day, that's all it is, or power, one of the two. But yeah, it is weird the parallels in this movie. Like this was imposed on these people. We're heading towards the same thing slower, but it's like, no, there's no outside factor here. It's just greed that's making this
yeah,
happen.
well I remember and also like the weird about face because I remember like the people like think talk about overpopulation and stuff like that, and they would say if you can't feed them, don't breed them, and now they're like we don't have enough people to replace the workers, and they're like you got to start having kids, and it's like oh what are you gonna do about that? It's like it's all your burden. It's like nope.
Yeah.
What if I just elected not to?
Voluntary extinction.
So again, I just, but also I never got that stuff. If like we really needed to have people, it would be a problem. We could have people. It's not a problem. It's only.
Yeah, it's just kind of a depressing way to live.
Yeah, I'm also like maybe I don't know if like everybody in my generation, but there was always this idea is like we see our parents and stuff is like they're using Social Security and stuff to their advantage, and like oh that's great, but it's still like not enough. And so like I look at that stuff, it's like I know I'm paying into the system, but I'm never gonna collect it. There's no fucking way I'm getting any of it.
Yeah, they've raised the ages we can collect to like a year before our practical death. It's like, well, that's cute.
And yeah, and I don't mean yeah, and they still like want to get rid of Medicare. It's like, what if we made these old people pay because they have all the money, right? And it's like, some of them do, yeah.
Yeah, that's not like proportional though. It's not like every one of them.
And like I don't, and like they always want to tap into the Social Security. It's like, but like what are they gonna do with it? They just want the money and then cut all the costs that like are associated with it, and like, no, look at all this money we have. So I don't.
Yeah, I don't. There is no plan there. There is no. I mean, there's no thinking down the road. It's just all in the moment.
Yeah.
And
or are they just gonna transfer it to the stock market, and that's like they did with because like I mean like. Because I don't think Social Security is like wound up in the stock market like your 401k is, right?
No, I don't think so.
Okay.
They've tried.
Yeah.
But everyone's like, yeah, that's a stock market's a fucking Ponzi scheme, and yeah, we can't have that writing on Just
that was like the impetus for the sudden boost in the 80s of why like the stock market went crazy, is because they got into like the pension plans and stuff got all pension plans and mortgages all got wrapped up into the stock market, because like, you know, like, oh, look what we can do with your margins. And and then suddenly, you know, that could be traded against, and suddenly that opened up like literally $1 trillion to the stock market. And it's like, oh, look at this boom in the 80s. And it was basically all, it was just all, yeah, like you said, a Ponzi scheme, which
yeah,
ultimately the
yeah,
Germans had to pay. Like every time there's a big problem with the stock market, which is always created by greed and a lack of oversight, the Germans always end up with the like the last, like they end up with the last hand on the handle. So that's your problem.
yeah, yeah. You got the hot potato.
It's like, hey, let's not do that to Germany again. I remember it being a problem like 100 years ago. um. So, anyways, yeah. So Miriam's talking about her times being a nurse, and like that's just a good bit of like, yeah, if this had happened, what are the small little stories that would be effective? It's like, oh yeah. They hear a police siren outside. They head out front. There's a police car with like an automated turret on top of it,
Yeah,
which they have that stuff now.
yeah.
A voice says to stand still, and Theo calls him a fascist pig. And then Sid gets out, and he pretends like he's going to beat up Theo, but he's like, it's a joke. So Sid's a very weird guy, but he's like a friend of Jasper, which I don't know how they're friends. Maybe he was just Sid used to beat up Jasper when they had to break up the protest or something like that, and they became weird friends or something like that.
Yeah, I'm starting to think that Sid, like, just this became his job.
Yeah.
Yeah, it says that vehicle is made for movie.
Okay.
It's basically something called, oh, what was it called? The Australian Army called it a dingo. And they added 2 wheels to it, and it was like some kind of military ATV that the British Army was interested in, but it says it's only been used in movies and never actually made it to production.
Okay.
So
is this the only one, or they make multiple versions of it?
that's
for
the
movies?
only one.
Okay.
It's just been in different movies.
Okay. Yeah, they're riding back of the squad car. Sid talks in the first person, so that's just like a great way to make a weird character introduced in the third act. So. He talks up Jasper's like, yeah, he's a great friend, not knowing he's dead. So,
Right.
Sid tells them instructions on how to blend in with the refugees to get to a checkpoint, which is basically like, look sad.
Yeah, I like the place they're going is, it's going with British names like Bexhill,
Yeah.
which in like the real world is like, it's kind of a place you go south of London to relax. It's kind of like, because it's called Bexhill on Sea,
Yeah.
because we always have those kind of names. And it's also the birth of auto racing was there.
Okay.
But here it's just a giant, like, just, basically a Warsaw World War II style Jewish ghetto, but all immigrants. Very World War II looking place.
Yeah, and of course, I think somebody graffitis the thing to say Sex Hill.
Yeah.
They get on a bus. They're driven away. Miriam tells Theo about how like they don't actually know how to get in contact with the Human Project, which he's mad. It's like, you're telling me that now. So, then we cut to it's night. Key's water breaks. She starts having contractions. A guard gets on the bus and starts grabbing people. And then Miriam gets grabbed, where she like offers herself up to get grabbed. Then Theo like warns the guard of piss, and so the guard like, oh, you're gross, and then he leaves. So I don't know what these guards are doing on here, but they seem to be like extra judicious to the people they pull out of this bus. They like strip search them and do other things. So, but this is the last we see of Miriam. So, because I don't know, it also seems like they're maybe executing them or something, but like we don't quite see that just yet. But or we don't know if that's happening, but like it could be.
Yeah, it's kind of implied that like nothing good's going to happen to any women taken off, and they just might shoot everyone else
Yeah.
just for fun.
Then Key and Theo get filtered into a refugee camp. A guard steals Theo's watch. And then we cut to Key and Theo meet some lady by a statue, and then like she'll help them out. I forget what her name is. Like you don't get her name till like 10 minutes before the end of the movie. It's like
Marichka.
Yeah.
She's like Eastern European, I'm guessing, or something.
Yeah. They drive to the refugee camp, and the lady gives them a room to an apartment complex without power. Theo gives the lady cigarettes to leave because Key's like, get her out of here. Then Key gives birth to a live baby, so they're like, okay, that works. It's on a dirty mattress and a couple buckets of water that we don't know whether it's good or not. But like, hey, you can't beggars can't be choosers.
Right.
No one's given birth in 20 years. They're like, nobody. There's not really facilities for this. So, then we cut to morning. Sid is knocking on the door. He talks about like someone has blown a hole in the fence of the refugee camp, which I think it's like the refugees trying to get out, but he thinks it's the fishes trying to get in, which I'm presuming that that's what happened. So I'm guessing that's what's going on there. Sid notices the baby for the moment, and then because he's like, wait, did I see what I think I said? So he insists on confirming it, and so he sees the baby, he gets dumbfounded, and so it's like, all right, but you need to move. And so then Sid pulls a gun on him, forces out of there, and this is where Sid like tells like he knows like the cops and the fishes are looking for them, and so he's basically planning to sell them out for his own, for rewards or whatever. Then the lady and Theo like fight off Sid, who's like shot all his bullets, and then they have to like squeeze through a door that's being like has like a half buried tire in front of it, so they can't open the door all the way, and so they squeeze through that door, which like Theo barely squeezes through it as Sid reloads his gun and starts shooting at the door. And then like he kind of moves away from the door, but then he like goes back, and then like when he hears Sid trying to get to the door, and then he just picks up a car battery and brains him with the car battery. It's like,
oh, it was a car battery. I thought it was a brick.
No, it's
okay,
car batteries.
That's pretty cool.
Just as effective and just as heavy. So. Because it was just sitting there next to the tire. So, then they run across refugees that are like protesting and shouting Allah Akbar. So it's like, oh, are these all like?
Yeah, and these guys are all waving like AK-47s and stuff in the air. So
yeah, I got
like,
signs and guns. Like, where did they get all this stuff? Was this here? Did they steal it from the cops?
Well, they're right near the ocean, so maybe it's being brought in. Who knows?
The lady takes him to a bank for safety. The baby gets them into the door, because when they show the baby, there's like the guy's like, oh, okay. They rest up in what is probably the only luxurious place in here, because they don't have power or anything, but they got a bunch of stuff. They got like a chandelier and like some.
That's like weird, like luxuries all piled into the smallest place possible.
Yeah, it's just a bank. The guard gets Theo some shoes and access to a boat, so now Theo's got shoes again. Because now, yeah, it was when he was running out of here, he like stepped on some glass and stuff, so his feet were hurt, but he seems to be okay now. Because then Theo's looking out the window, and they see the army marching through, and like and I think it's the fishes on the roof. I'm not sure. Probably.
I believe so. Yeah.
Because it could be the other group too, or whatever. The Muslim population with all AK-47s. Then there's a sudden music change as we work through as they work their way through a tunnel because they leave the bank, and this is the start of the famous one shot.
Yes, the song is called Threnody to the Victims of Hiroshima by Krzysztof Penderecki. He's a Polish composer, and he wrote this he wrote it in the 60s.
Okay.
But it's considered the beginning of like orchestral horror music.
Okay. Because this has come up before, right?
Yeah, this was used by David Lynch in
Oh, was
What
this
was
in the last season of the Twin Peaks?
Yes, that weird one where the
The
Trinity
yeah.
bomb with the balloon in, and then People Under the Stairs used it too in
Okay.
1941.
That's a movie we'll
Uh,
get to some point.
and I think it's been used in other
Okay.
things. But I remember this is part of the wonderful stuff about this movie is like how they effectively use music and and filming and
Yeah.
stuff. And yeah, because it like makes perfect sense with what's going on. Because yeah, this is that giant one shot of just an insane street warfare,
Yeah.
which it's like it's a testament to the filmmakers that they got it. Because this is the one where there's blood on the lens
Yeah.
through parts of it. Yeah,
That's
okay.
when you know, like, they actually, like, it wasn't actually one cut because eventually the blood disappears, and so, like, oh, they hit a cut somewhere,
Yeah, they had to.
but that's fine. It's all presented that way. I mean, they went so far as, that was at 1913 or whatever, 1917 is just an entire one shot movie, but it's all spliced together. It's not actually one shot, but here they tried their damnedest to get it all in one shot, which I can't remember how many times they did this, but they didn't really have the budget to do. I think they maybe did it twice, and that's all they had the budget for. So
It's an amazing scene. I
yes,
mean, it's really cool.
it's how everything grows from one perspective. Is like it's very it's cool. Um, so yeah, they work their way through the tunnel. There's like gunfire all about. The fishes show up and like hold them up. So yeah, Luke takes the thief's now in like a wheelchair, but not like the big wheelchair. It's got like 4 rubber wheels for off-roading wheelchair.
Yeah, it's a weird wheelchair. It's
um, which I think they took from there's like this old lady singing to the baby and like feeding oranges to Key, and I think it might be one of her wheelchairs or just her wheelchair. I'm not sure.
yeah. I don't know. I was like, is there another one in there, or they could have just taken hers? Because the lady might have given it to him.
Yeah.
It's like, yeah, I'll lay on the ground, get the baby out of here.
This is like, if this is the last thing I do, here you go.
Yeah,
um. So yeah, Patrick is waiting to kill Theo, because his younger brother died, and Luke says he can kill them when Key is out of eyesight. So yeah, Patrick's just hanging around. He shoots like the guard, and then does he shoot? No, he doesn't shoot Mariska, or what's her name, or I can't remember. Because yeah, the one lady's there still, but I think that. But yeah, eventually they get engaged by the army comes through and starts shooting at the fishes, and so everybody is able to run off. Um. Oh yeah. The army pulls up in a tank, so they start fighting with the fishes. So yeah. Patrick runs away. Oh yeah, we start following Theo around. And he's kind of running in the direction after Patrick, because they start running one direction, but they run into the army again, and start running the other way. And when Patrick turns around and runs back, he sees Theo and he starts firing at him. And then Theo runs off into some abandoned buses. And so yeah, the camera goes in there with them. And the army guys start shooting at Patrick. The fishes get trapped in a building, and the tanks are like firing on them. There's like blood on the camera now. The tanks with their like machine guns just execute people as they leave the building, even though they have up a white flag. But they say, yeah, we're not trusting anybody. Then a rocket launcher's fired at a tank. Theo runs into the building looking for Key. Theo works his way upstairs. He hides from Patrick, who then just gets killed shooting through some windows. So that's into him. Then Theo follows the cries of a baby, and then he finds Key and the crying baby, and then Luke is just like firing out of windows. He's explaining that they need the baby, and then like he keeps pointing his rifle at Theo every time like, they try to move away out of the room. Which I don't know, like he's just kind of like laying down, so I don't know if he got shot or something. I don't think he did. It's just like that's the best way to hide behind cover in the position he's in. So
yeah.
he's got a grenade launcher too, but he's not using it. But and then they eventually like they run their way out of there. Luke fires after them, and then that room blows up with Luke inside. So now he's dead. So presumably. Theo and Key start walking the crying baby out of the building, and then people start like lining up to see the baby because like now everything's starting to like and even the army's like coming up through the stairwells, and they see the baby. They call ceasefire, so like everything gets quieter as they walk out. Everybody realizes like, oh, it's the first baby in 20 years. Like, this is important. We better stop fighting. Then they get clear of the building, and then all hell breaks loose again as someone just fires a rocket at the army, and so then everyone starts firing again. So that's like their one reprieve. So yeah, that's like the end of the one shot. So it's a really cool scene. If there's one thing to see from this movie, it's that scene. So, yeah, they find Marichka still alive, and she gets them to a boat. She pushes the boat along. Theo's like telling her to get in the boat, but she doesn't. I don't know if there's any kind of what's the thing in the Bible where they put the baby in the straw?
Oh, when Moses is set the river.
I don't know if there's anything like that going on here. I just thought of it for a moment here. So anytime you put a baby in a boat, it's got to be Moses. So.
Yeah.
They did part a sea of soldiers, so yeah. Theo rows the boat out into the fog, and so they're looking for a human project boat. They stop at a buoy. You see jets fly overhead and just bomb the refugee camp, presumably.
Yeah, it's kind of reminiscent of the jets. I don't know if it was the same scene or whatever from 28 Weeks Later.
Yeah.
Remember when the guy's looking up in the air and you just see all the jets flying over and they completely destroy London?
Yeah.
It seemed like a very similar scene.
Yeah, which we're supposed to get 28 years later pretty soon.
That's what I heard.
So.
Is Cillian Murphy going to be back?
I think so.
Probably. Coming off of Oppenheimer.
Key gets scared thinking she's bleeding, and it's revealed that it's Theo's blood, so he got shot by Luke. Which he's really holding up here because you wouldn't think he got shot this whole time. So.
Yeah.
Because he had an AR-15, so we see what 5.56 does to people without body armor, and it's not good, and it very easily kills you. So.
Yep, it's kind of designed that way.
Theo's losing strength as he like guides Key on how to calm her baby. Which have you been through Reddit? Have you seen like the new way to calm babies?
No.
It's like you kind of hold them like face down in your palm. You kind of like wrap their hands together, and you just kind of like rock back and forth, like forward and back, and then they get calm.
Huh, I've never heard that.
Let's see here. Key says she's going to call her baby Dylan after his son.
Remember his earlier name? The earlier name she was going to give him in the movie.
Oh, is it like Valerie and then like
Froley?
And what's the other one she comes up with?
I don't remember.
Bazooka. Bazooka's the other one.
Oh yeah.
Because like she doesn't want to call it Froley anymore because it's a girl. It's like Froley's not a girl's name, but then Bazooka is. But she says like Dylan's a girl's name too. Which here then after hearing that, Theo either passes out or die. That's up to you of how bleak you want this movie to be, because presumably like a medical boat's about to pick them up, so there's always hope. But this movie doesn't present hope as an option, so not well until it's like the end here. It's like hope might be an option. So, Key keeps saying Theo's name, and then she notices a boat in the fog. The boat's called Tomorrow. And then Keo sings to her baby, and then credits. And we have sounds of children playing that mixes with the music, thus implying the world was fixed or whatever. That's up to you. Again, how bleak do you want this movie to be, or do you want there to be hope and everything gets fixed and figured out? So, which it seems weird to like have a movie to have 95% bleakness and 5% hope. It's kind of hard to decide on hope, but again, that's up to you. So,
yeah, this movie does a really good job of putting you in the world, and you almost want to hope for things.
Yeah,
because the this bleakness of this world is not like indulgent. It's like very believable.
Yeah,
it's like essentially people suck, and if anything weird happens, can always count on people to react in the dumbest way possible. We know that we can actually back that statement up. So yeah, it's it's yeah, it's up to you. It is one of the bleakest movies. This is probably not as depressing as Soylent Green,
No.
but it's because it's like the opposite of Soylent Green. So weird. But it is pretty. It's not a world you'd ever want. There's no place to fit in there.
I mean, Soylent Green seems almost like. I mean, like implausible is not the ring, but it's like clearly science fiction going on. Where this all seems like this could happen.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Like, but Soylent Green's just a sci-fi concept inflicted on people. Where this is like, again, the same thing, but just believable in how it's carried out. It's like this all seems like this could happen. It's just everything takes a wrong turn, and we're here. It's not doesn't seem that far off, really. So,
Yeah.
it was like Soylent Green, like that's a whole process. We got to have plants built. This is just a slow falling apart. So, but yeah, you read the book, so I don't like. But you're saying the book's even cooler and bleaker. So.
Yeah. The book's even bleaker because Theo and his cousin or his brother or whoever the high government minister is, like he's like the Lord Protector of the UK in the book, and in the end, Theo ends up killing. There is no pregnant girl that's a character in the book.
Okay.
It's very different. But Theo ends up killing his cousin and like claiming that mantle for himself, and he's going to be a more gentle protector, leading mankind to its inevitable, doom.
Oh, okay.
But there's also talk in the book of like, well, the people might be doing something other places. There's rumors, but movie's a lot more. That's why I was so fascinated when I walked into this thing. Is like, man, this is going to be the most depressing scene. It's going to be, Clive Owen sitting on a throne, like, Conan the Barbarian. It's like, how's this going to go? But they went a different direction, a more effective direction, because they took kind of a dreary, depressing book and made it into kind of a dreary, depressing, but action movie at the same time. It's like there's a lot of stuff going on. So that was good.
Yeah, I remember there's a game called Soma, which starts out like you're a person going in for like a psychological test.
Yeah.
And then you wake up in something akin an underground facility or underwater facility, like something almost akin to BioShock, but not really. not the 50s Art Deco aesthetic. Just more practical. And you're like fighting robots and stuff like that. And then you've come to find out, oh, you are one of these robots. And like that psychological test you went into is like they mapped your like personality and into a computer program that they can then insert into things. And then you basically find out that like, oh, the world went like climate change made it so like they couldn't produce food anymore. And then it's almost like 100 years later, and then you find like the last human, and like they're working on a technical project that they're going to launch a probe into space that basically contains all these people that have had their minds put into a computer form, and they're going to put it in an arc and shove it into space. And there's like this lady who's like the last human alive, and there's no more resources, so she's just starving to death, like with a intravenous vein of the last food they can have to feed her with. And then she just asked to be killed and send the probe into space. And it's like, well, that's in the humanity, and this is the best we could do. Very bleak video game, but it's still humanity trying.
I think I've heard of that one. Yeah.
So yeah, I think it's kind of a similar thing of here. Like, at least humanity's trying. So it's all going to end somehow, and it's not going to be fun.
Yeah. The end is never the happy time.
Somebody's going to be that stretched-faced human that watches the world get, destroyed by the sun for fun. And then their face gets blown up at the end of it. And that one Doctor Who episode.
Oh, okay.
You remember that one?
The face of Bo or whatever?
No, well, that's another character, but then the last human is basically just like this lady that's nothing but skin and a face in the middle of it. It's just a skin like kind of stretched in like a almost.
Oh, she's like a giant drum with a face in the middle of it.
Oh well, her she's more like a trampoline with a face in the middle of it.
Yeah, okay, but just like a big
Yeah,
stretched surface.
yeah.
Okay.
But then it turns out at the end she's evil. And then her like face, she doesn't have like her minions to moisten her, and then she just like her face just implodes because she can't get moist anymore. And then that's the death of the last human. But then you find out that the what is it? The one future guy that keeps returning and was in Torchwood, he ends up. It's presumed that he's actually the face of Bo, so he's actually the last human or whatever. So.
Okay, yeah, that's what I remember. Yes, Torchwood.
But yeah, that episode's a neat episode because it's basically like these aliens that are watching the death of a planet, like for like as a not fun, but just kind of like as a archaeological event or whatever. And so.
Okay, like something historically important that should be recorded.
Yeah. Because it's like, well, yeah, the life hasn't supported planets for millions of years, but now the planet's going to be completely destroyed. So, well, we're sending a probe into space containing a supercut of scenes from the imperfect collection that is the Verhoeven Effect. What Nathan? What one scene from this movie are we shoving into space?
Well, if you're gonna do Children of Men, you've got to do the
one shot.
The one shot, because that perfectly describes everything that's great about this movie. Is the environment, how it draws you into it. The director of photography loves long takes. There's a lot of long takes in this movie, even stuff you don't even think about, like when Theo's walking back from meeting the fishes and all. It's like, yeah, that goes on for like 3 minutes of him just walking down this street that's filled with garbage and stairs. He's trying to light a cigarette, and yeah, it's like, if you pay attention to that, it's like, that's a heck of a, that would normally be done in like 3 seconds. It's like, establishing where we are, moving on. So,
having a camera move a lot of places, meaning you have to set up lighting for different places and have none of that equipment visible in the shot, is a really fucking hard thing to do.
That's a guy who's doing his work. It's like, we're framing this all in, and yeah, but that's Children of Men for you. Definitely one of the best movies of the 21st century so far. That didn't make a lot of movie, but in America, it was described as having a directionless marketing campaign, and no one knew what to do with it here.
Yeah.
So, but everyone talks about it. So it's like, yeah, if you had tried, I think you would have had a hit.
And I'm not sure the title "Children of Men"
series.
I'm not sure the title "Children of Men" necessarily describes the movie. So
it comes from the Bible.
Oh, okay.
That's the lady who wrote the book. I forget. I think it's from the Book of Psalms. It's like, "Come ye children of men, and bow before God, and ask forgiveness of your sins." And it's it's like
that makes sense.
Snapshot of that. Yeah, should have explained that. I always like keep all these factoids in my head. It's like, yeah, that's probably germane to what we're talking about. Nah, I'm gonna tell a fart joke.
Well, you can find us at Letterboxd username VHE, which I probably will get updated this week. We'll see.
Yeah.
1 out of 5 stars. What are we giving Children of Men?
Oh, 5 for sure. It's the happiest. It's the best Christmas movie. It's just could replace It's a Wonderful Life.
Let's see what came out on Christmas Day in 2006.
This is a weird Christmas Day release. Hey, kids. Well, we can't get into the Disney movie. What about Children of Men? It's got kids in it.
Nobody's going to be in there.
Yeah. We can get high at the theater.
Oh, let's see here. That's domestic box office. Oh, is this just going to give me Christmas movies for 2006? Yeah, that's not what I'm looking for. All right, we'll find. Okay, Christmas Day 2006. Top grossing movie, Night at the Museum.
Okay.
Fun for all your family. That makes sense. No.
I still think I would have been the parent that took his kid to Children of Men.
Dreamgirls, which I vaguely know what that is, what that's about. That's about a singing group of. Oh, who were they? Damn it! It's 4 black ladies, but I can't remember. But they end up having. Oh man, I can't remember what that's about. But The Pursuit of Happiness, which that's the with happiness spelled with a Y there.
Is that the Will Smith
Yeah,
thing?
that's Will Smith.
Where he's homeless?
Yeah.
Okay.
But he can solve a Rubik's Cube, so.
Yeah.
Number 4 was Rocky Balboa.
Okay. Yeah, I can see
We're gonna
that.
have a 50-year-old man win a boxing championship, which I guess wasn't out of.
60-year-old man.
No, because that was 18 years ago. He's like 70 now,
Oh.
so he would have been probably late 50s then. So.
Yeah, okay.
The Good Shepherd. Oh, which one's that?
That's the one with Matt Damon about the founding of the CIA.
Oh, that's right. Yeah.
It's a great movie. He's got a great speech in there when he's talking to, because what's his name came back to acting to be in it. Who is the guy? Damn it. Because it's Matt Damon, and there's a bunch of people like John Voight's in it.
Robert De Niro direct that? Who directed that?
Robert De Niro's in it. I think he might have directed it too. Okay. But what's his name? The guy he always played, guy from Goodfellas.
I'm looking at the cast now, but it's in a weird presentation. Oh, Joe Pesci?
Yeah, Joe Pesci came back to acting.
Okay, yeah.
To do a scene playing Lucky Luciano, talking to the Matt Damon character who would have been the director of the CIA by then. I'm not sure because the Damon character doesn't reflect a real character.
Okay.
He's supposed to be like James Jesus Angleton. It's kind of like the guy they were going for, I think. But,
yeah, it was directed by Robert De Niro.
But he has this great speech with Joe Pesci, who's of course Luciano, this Italian American gangster, and he says, my people were here at the founding of this country. Like they fought in the Revolutionary War. They had all this stuff. You people came later. You're guests in my country. And someday you'll be asked to leave. Like, so this was the director of the CIA mob guy. This was like, wow, okay. That's dark. I never knew there were like original Americans. Like that's an interesting concept.
Number 6 that year for Christmas Day, Black Christmas, which I hear is a good movie, and it's a remake. The We Are Marshall, that's a football movie. Aragon, that's a dragon movie. The Holiday, I don't know what that is. Charlotte's Web, Blood Diamond, Apocalypto, Happy Feet, Casino Royale, Deja Vu. And then all the way down at 21, Children of Men made $179,000 that day. So,
damn.
But it was also only in 1,500 theaters. So
they should have gone full spread Christmas on that.
Yeah, I think it was a limited release for Christmas, and then had a full release in January. But again, didn't make. I don't know how successful it was. It didn't. If you look at the numbers that are presented to us, it doesn't seem like it was successful. But if you look at the movie, it's like, this is a good movie. Like, I know it's bleak, but
Yeah. And I remember specifically seeing it in theaters.
Yeah, I went, Well, you can find us at verhoeveneffect.com. There we have listener support. You can support us on monthly side with 99 cents, $4.99, and $9.99 and canceling time. You can rate our podcast whatever you want. You can rate us whatever you want, but remember the algorithm only listens to the highest rating. So you control the algorithm. The algorithm doesn't control you. So just give us highest rating and poison all your search history with us. so we'll come as a result. Do our clandestine operations against the man of machines.
Yeah.
You can find us at Twitter at Verhoeven Effect. You can find us at Blue Sky Social at Verhoeven Effect. You can find us on Facebook at Verhoeven Effect. You can find us on YouTube at American Greed Fact. You can watch both this and that show live and unedited. So for the Verhoeven Effect podcast, I'm Conlon.
And I'm Nathan.
Goodbye, America.